Sino ba namang magtutulungan kundi tayo rin lang po. Naway sa tulong ninyo, maging matatag kami sa harap ng iba't ibang pagsubok na aming pinagdadaanan. Tulungan niyo po kami dito sa Senado na magampanan ang aming mga tungkulin para sa taong bayan ng totoo, mabuti at karapat.
Maraming salamat po. Sana i-consider.
Grant us the wisdom and perseverance to pass the budget on time as well as other important legislative measures so that we can be of greater service to our fellow countrymen in this time of uncertainty and distress. Gabayan ninyo kami upang maibigay namin ang tamang serbisyo sa aming kapwa-tao tulad ng aming pagbibigay serbisyo sa inyo, ang aming Diyos. Panginoon, bagamat maraming pagsubok ang dumating sa aming buhay ngayon, pinapalakas po namin ang aming pananampalataya sa inyo at naniniwala kami na sa aming pagmamalasakit sa kapwa ay malalampasan rin namin ang lahat ng mga ito. Not only do we trust in your faithfulness, but we also trust in our people's spirit of bayanihan, that in times of struggle and hardship, the Filipino leaves no man or women behind. We pray for strength and lift all our burdens unto you, knowing that you will not forsake us. Amen.
Amen. Session is suspended. Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members, the Honorable Senator Angara.
Dayan, buksan mo
Dina.
ito.
Present.
Nagro-roll ko.
Members, the Honorable Senator Cayetano. De Lima. La Rosa. Drilon.
Here, present.
Gatchalian. Go.
Present always.
Gordon. Ontiveros.
Present.
Lacson. Lapid.
Present.
Marcos. Pacquiao.
Present.
Pangilinan. Pimentel III.
Present.
Poe.
Present.
Recto. Revilla.
Present.
Tolentino. Villanueva. Villar.
Present.
Zubiri. Senate President Soto III is present.
With 6
Mr.
senators
President.
physically present and 16 senators virtually present for a total of 22, the chair declares the presence of a quorum.
Mr.
Majority
President,
Leader?
Mr. President, majority.
Yes. Senator Marcos?
Yes, how was I recorded po?
Present.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
President.
How was I recorded, Mr. President?
Present.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr.
Senator Drilon? Present.
Yes, I have a suggestion. For the past few weeks, because of our virtual sessions, the question is always raised by a senator whether how he was recorded. May I suggest that the secretary, after calling the roll, will report orally to the president as to the senators who are present by name. And on that basis, number one, the senator will know how he was recorded, and number two, for the record, the president will declare a quorum if a majority is present. Just a suggestion, Mr. President, to avoid these queries from the senators whether or not how they were recorded. A suggestion to make it more efficient, Mr. President. I repeat, after the roll call, the secretary will enumerate those present. Then the senators would be aware of how they were recorded, and then afterwards, the president declares a quorum if there is a quorum. Thank you very much, sir. A suggestion.
The suggestion of the minority leader will be taken into consideration. Thank you. Senator Pangilinan?
Yes, I have another suggestion. We do have a chat for the webinar, for the WebEx. Another option is to put in the chat box who are marked as present, so that we will just have to go through it, and it'll be quicker, Mr. President. Again, for the consideration of the Senate President. Thank you, Mr. President.
The presence in the chat group is recorded, yes, but sometimes there is a member who does not have a video on. Naka-log in pero wala naman dun. That's the technical problem there. But we will look into the suggestion also of Senator Pangilinan. We'll take both suggestions into consideration. Thank you, gentlemen. Majority Leader?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we defer the approval of the Journal of the 28th session Wednesday, November 25, 2020 to a later hour as it's still being prepared and finalized, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the journal's consideration and approval is deferred.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a short reference of business. May we proceed with the reference of business?
The Secretary will proceed with the reference of business.
Reference of business, committee report number 147, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality, Social Justice, Welfare and Rural Development, and Finance on Senate number 1933 with Senators Poe, Revilla, Jr., and Ontiveros as authors thereof, entitled An Act Establishing the Rules and Policies on Domestic Administrative Adoption Proceeding of Filipino and for other purposes, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate numbers 1070 and 1337, sponsor Senator Ontiveros.
The calendar for ordinary business.
Additional reference of business.
Yes, additional, go ahead.
Message of the President of the Philippines, letter of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte dated 18 November 2020, submitting for the Senate's consideration and concurrence the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which was adopted on 7 July 2017 during the conclusion of the United Nations Conference to negotiate a legally binding instrument to prohibit nuclear weapons, leading towards their total elimination, and signed by the Philippines on 20 September 2017.
Referred to the Committee on Foreign Relations.
Resolutions, PS Resolution number 582, resolution directing the Committee on Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation into the delay, confusion, and duplication in land titling under the Department of Agrarian Reform and other agencies, introduced by Senator Marcos.
Referred to the Committees on Agriculture and Justice.
PS Resolution number 583, resolution directing the Senate Committee on Tourism to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the status of ecotourism sites across the country, introduced by Senator Binay.
To the Committees on Tourism and Environment. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 7727. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of 7727 is in order.
That is our national budget, Mr. President. Budget appropriations. May we recognize the chairperson of the committee, the distinguished gentleman from Aurora, no other than Senator Sani Angara. And I move that, Mr. President, we open the period of amendments. So moved.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, the period of amendments is open. Senator Sani Angara, Chairman of the Committee on Finance, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Good morning to our distinguished colleagues. We would like to begin by thanking the Senate, the leadership, our colleagues, and of course our staff for, even though we were recently bombarded with serious challenges, including typhoons, floods, power outages, connectivity problems, and of course, the existing global pandemic, the Senate was still able to scrutinize the 2021 General Appropriations Bill and stay on schedule towards its timely enactment. After nearly a week's worth of interpellations, with some of our debates lasting well into the morning, your Committee on Finance is now prepared to introduce our amendments, thanks to the inputs of most, if not all, of our colleagues in this august chamber. Nanatili pa rin po ang adhikain natin na ang pambansang budget ay budget ng pagbangon, ang pinakastratehiya natin para umahon mula sa bigat at hirap ng nakaraang taon. Sa mga amendments na babanggitin ngayon, paiigtingin natin ang pagtugon sa pandemyang COVID-19, ang pagtulong sa mga nasalanta ng kalamidad, ang pagpapabuhay muli ng ating ekonomiya, at higit sa lahat ang muling pag-abot natin sa ambisyong maging mas ligtas, mas maunlad at mas masagana ang ating mahal na Pilipinas. Considering we are still in the middle of a global pandemic, much of the increases the committee has made is in the health sector with regards to our COVID-19 response, as well as to help our countrymen deal with the numerous calamities befalling us in recent days. For instance, acting on the good news that there are now at least 3 vaccines that are reportedly safe and more than 90% effective against COVID-19, we are setting aside a huge amount in unprogrammed appropriations for their purchase. There will also be significant funds devoted for a mass immunization program across the Philippines, including storage, transmission, and distribution of vaccines. All upon suggestions of our colleagues, notably our Senate President pro tempore, Senator Ralph Recto, and supported by our vice chairs in charge of health, Senators Pia Cayetano, Senator Bongo. As we wait for these vaccines, Mr. President, we should remain vigilant through social distancing and safety protocols, and we are also allotting funds under the DILG, again, to recruit, train, deploy, and support our contact tracers, continuing what we had started under the Bayanihan 2 law. We've also increased funding under the Research Institute for Tropical Medicines, or RITM, for its quality assurance program for the country's COVID-19 laboratory network upon the initiative of our Vice Chair, Senator Dick Gordon. More COVID-19 laboratories will be trained, more in vitro diagnostic medical devices for COVID-19 will be evaluated, and the surveillance of influenza-like illnesses with severe acute respiratory infections will be expanded. The pandemic has only highlighted the critical role the RITM plays in safeguarding our society. By providing them with more funds now, we hope to further empower them and save more lives. We're making significant additions to the budgets of DOH regional hospitals and other healthcare institutions, particularly to allow them to increase their bed capacities and upgrade their equipment and facilities. There's no better time to improve our healthcare system than when we are faced with a grave healthcare crisis. Our Senate President, Senate President Tito Soto, will be happy to note that there will be increase in the Vicente Soto Memorial Medical Center Modernization Project to help with the construction of its new facilities, and the Philippine Children's Medical Center can also expect greater budgetary support from the government thanks to Vice Chair Amy Marcos. A new line item is also introduced for the upgrading of the Siargao District Hospital as suggested by our Vice Chair, Senator Bongo. Several increases are also forthcoming for the Health Facilities Enhancement Program based on inputs received from Majority Leader Mig Zubiri, Senator Coco Pimentel, Vice Chairpersons Cayetano and Hontiveros. Funding was found for family super health centers, also to supply, deliver, and install dialysis packages in several local government units. There will be also increased appropriations to implement several recently enacted local hospital laws, including those for increased bed capacity. We also took heed, Mr. President, of the suggestions of our colleagues, Vice Chairs Senator Grace Poe, Senator Joel Villanueva, Senators Binay and Lapid, among others, to increase the appropriations for the government's Assistance to Indigents program. Upon the suggestion of Vice Chair Risa Hontiveros, increases were also made towards the prevention and control of non-communicable diseases, or NCDs, like heart disease, stroke, and even mental health conditions, as well as tuberculosis. We firmed up the funding for the implementation of the National Integrated Cancer Control Program and the Cancer Assistance Fund, as well as the Rare Diseases Act, which was supported by our colleagues. We also ramped up our initiative to assure our pipeline of medical professionals by strengthening even more medical schools across the country and expanding the carrying capacity of their respective colleges of medicine. To support the medical scholarship, Doktor Para sa Bayan bill, authored by our Senate President and sponsored by our hardworking colleague, Vice Chair Senator Joel Villanueva. Our experience in the past few weeks has only underscored how we continue to be threatened by natural calamities. This is why your committee has elected to augment different policies and programs with regard to our disaster response and mitigation. So many lives have been displaced and disrupted by several calamities this year, including the Taal volcano eruption, typhoons Quinta, Rolly, and Ulysses. Collectively, these account for billions in economic losses, not to mention the unfathomable human price of losing loved ones. Thus, upon the initiative of Vice Chair Senator Ping Lacson, a disaster rehabilitation and reconstruction assistance program for local government units, or LGUs, will be included in next year's Local Government Support Fund. Significant funding will be set aside to help LGUs build shelter and resettlement, as well as roads, bridges, flood control, and evacuation facilities. This fund may also be used for agricultural support, crop support, livestock support, and fisheries support, as well as for social protection mechanisms. Based on our Vice Chairperson, Senator Risa Hontiveros' suggestion, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund may also now be used for prevention and preparedness activities such as the training of first responders, the procurement of equipment like lifeboats, and the upgrade and improvement of evacuation centers in poor and highly vulnerable local government units, or LGUs. We've also supported the initiatives of Senator Francis Tolentino in providing funding for permanent evacuation housing projects for victims of the eruptions of Taal and Mayon volcanoes. We have also adopted our Vice Chairperson, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian's recommendation to increase the funding for the Electric Cooperatives Emergency and Resiliency Fund, or ECERF, to help electric cooperatives prepare better for any form of calamity or disaster. We're also empowering the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, to help more Filipino families in distress through the initiative and support of our Vice Chairs, Senator Amy Marcos, Majority Leader Zubiri, Senator Nancy Binay, Senator Bong Revilla, Senator Lito Lapid, Vice Chairs Senator Grace Poe, and Vice Chair Joel Villanueva. Patuloy rin po ang pagpupursige natin para paandarin muli ang mga makina ng ating ekonomiya tulad ng agrikultura at turismo, pati na rin ang sektor ng infrastruktura bukod sa pag-iigtingin ang suporta para sa mga kababayan natin na nawalan ng trabaho, sinigurado rin natin na tunay na kikilingan ng ating gobyerno ang mga produktong masasabing tatak Pinoy. Sa pangunguna po ng ating Vice Chair, Senator Cynthia Villar, nagkakaroon ng pondo para mabigyan ng cacao o coffee planting and processing equipment sa 22 coconut producing areas sa ilalim ng National High Value Crops Development Program. Tamang-tama dahil na bibigyan po ng o nagagantimpalaan ang ating tsokolate tulad ng Davao City Chocolate sa World Drinking Chocolate Competition at ang ating kape mula sa South Tupi, Maguindanao sa isang agricultural cooperative. So magkakaroon din po ng pondo ang National Dairy Authority, again, under the leadership of Senator Vice Chair Cynthia Villar, so to have a dairy goat pilot project in 18 areas, Your Honor. Iigting naman po ang pondo para sa pagpapatitulo ng mga agricultural lands sa tulong po ng ating Vice Chair Senator Ping Lacson. Napakalaki ang may tutulong nito para guminhawa at maging mas masaganang buhay ng ating mga magsasaka. Matutuwa naman po ang ating Majority Floor Leader, Senator Mig Zubiri, dahil magkakaroon ng pondo ang DOT or Department of Tourism para tumulong sa World Championship ng World Eskrima Cali Arnis Federation na gaganapin sa Cebu City sa darating na taon. May dagdag din na pondo rin para sa mga iba't ibang infrastructure projects sa mga kanayunan, Mr. President, sa mga paliparan at airport, daungan at pantalan, daan, tulay, para mapigilan ang mga landslide. Hahalili ito sa mga advokasya ng ating Public Works Chair, Senator Manny Pacquiao, at pag nagawa na po ang Bukidnon Airport, mas makikita po natin ang ating Majority Leader. Marami pa rin sa ating mga kababayan ang nahihirapan dahil nawalan sila ng trabaho sa dulot ng pandemya. Kaya dinagdagan po natin kasama nila Senator Zubiri, Minay, Lapid Revilla po ang pondo ng Dole at Villanueva para sa iba't ibang programa tulad ng TUPAD, GIP, tulong panghanap buhay sa ating disadvantaged or displaced workers at government internship program at may dagdag din po sa scholarship programs ng TESDA na dating pinamunuan natin kasama Senator Joel Villanueva. Sinigundahan din po natin ang mga panukali ni Senator Kiko Pangilinan na masigurado na totoong magbibigay ng tamang suporta ang gobyerno para sa mga produktong Pilipino. Pinasok po natin ang isang probisyon na nagsasabing dapat bumili ang gobyerno mula sa kababayan nating magsasaka at mangingisda, maging ang kanilang mga samahan o kooperatiba ng mga pagkain na gagamitin para sa mga feeding programs, relief operations at rice subsidies nito. Inaatasan din po ang DTI or Department of Trade and Industry na hanggang sa maaari dapat unang pinipili ang mga kumpanyang nakarehistro sa BOI at PEZA ang mga produktong gawa o inassemble dito sa Pilipinas. Malaki ang maitutulong nito para buhayin muli ang ating mga industriya at ekonomiya. Samot-saring pagsubok ang kinakaharap ng ating mga local government units, kaya sa rekomendasyon ng ating Senate Minority Floor Leader Frank Drilon, pinalawig natin ang coverage ng financial assistance to LGUs sa ilalim ng ALGU LGSF para kasama sa mga proyektong mapupondohan ay mga assistance programs and projects for education, health, and social protection in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Para sa sektor ng edukasyon, dinagdagan po natin ang pondo ng DepEd para sa school supplies, teachers' allowances, equipment at sa printing requirements sa mga class modules. Sa pangunguna po nila Education Chairman Sherwin Gatchalian, Vice Chair Amy Marcos, Senate President Pro Temp Ralph Recto. At paiigtingin rin natin ang pagtayo ng mga National Child Development Centers alinsunod sa mungkahi ni Vice Chairperson Senator Pia Cayetano. May pagtaas din ng pondo ng Philippine Science High School upon the initiative of Vice Chair Senator Lacson. Sa tulong ni Vice Chair Sherwin Gatchalian, also the Chair of the Senate Basic Education Committee, sinigurado natin na patuloy pa rin ang Alternative Learning System or ALS sa paghatid ng serbisyo at pagpapatakbo ng ALS Community Learning Centers, pati ang pagbayad sa transportasyon at teaching aid allowance ng mga ALS teachers at community ALS implementers kahit meron pandemya. Sa panukala naman po ni Senator Kiko Pangilinan and Senadora Vice Chair Grace Poe, malaking pagtaas ang ilalaan para sa development, reproduction at delivery ng iba't ibang learning resources tulad ng mga modules. Bagaman may COVID-19 vaccine, hindi agad-agad makakabalik sa eskwelahan ang ating mga anak hanggat hindi pa sila nababakunahan. Kaya mahalaga may pondong itatabi para magkaroon ng flexible learning options ang ating mga estudyante. Para naman gumaan ang pinapasa ng magulang ngayong pandemya, dinagdagan din po natin sa pangunguna nila Vice Chairpersons Villanueva at Poe ang pondo para sa scholarship programs ng Commission on Higher Education o CHED. We also expect the economy to open up, Mr. President, some more in the coming months. It is critical that we take steps to ensure the safety of existing forms of public transportation while promoting alternative modes where social distancing and safety protocols can be reasonably enforced. This is why, upon the recommendation of Vice Chairperson Senator Grace Poe, our budget will clearly mandate the DOTR or the Department of Transportation to enforce health protocols in all public transportation terminals and make sure that there is adequate ventilation, running water, provisions for hand soap, alcohol, and other hygiene products. The pandemic has also provided the opportunity for us to build back better, and so upon the suggestion, again, of Vice Chair Poe and Vice Chair Lacson, our proposed amendment to the budget ensures that all infrastructure projects, from construction to repair and rehabilitation, should be accessible to all citizens, including senior citizens and PWDs or persons with disabilities. It is only right that once we emerge from the lockdown, our senior citizens and PWDs find that their communities have become more inclusive and accessible to them. Our amendments to the proposed budget, Mr. President, also involve support to programs and projects that help the peace and order situation of our country. Recent events, however, underscore that there is still a lot to do to make our country much safer for everybody, including members of the court and our colleagues in the legal profession. For instance, during the interpellations on the judiciary, Senator Vice Chair Dick Gordon brought up the case of a lawyer who was shot in Cebu City in broad daylight. 2 weeks ago, news broke out about a Manila judge being shot dead in her chambers. These events only underscore the urgency of strengthening the rule of law throughout the country. It offers us more than enough reason to follow through on the recommendation of Vice Chair Ping Lacson to provide initial funding for the establishment of the Philippine Judicial Marshal Service as contemplated by a bill filed by Senators De Lima, Senate President Soto, Senators Gordon, and De La Rosa, which is supported by the judiciary branch. Upholding the rule of law and maintaining peace and order also involves capacitating our law enforcement agencies and uniformed personnel. Hence, we adopted the inputs of Senator De La Rosa, a former PNP chief, on increases to the PNP budget, of Vice Chair Risa Ontiveros for higher operational budget for the PNP Maritime Group, and for Senator Bong Revilla to upgrade the ICT capabilities of the PNP's Anti-Cybercrime Division. We've also followed through on the suggestions of the Senate President for increases in the PNP, for its Internal Affairs Office, also for Vice Chair Lacson's moves for increased budget for the CHR or Commission on Human Rights. Mr. President, to help usher in a sense of normalcy to our lives, we also sought to augment some initiatives related to arts and the culture as well as sports. Upon the suggestion of the Senate President, funds were included in the NCCA or the National Commission for Culture and the Arts for our participation in the event of the Asia Pacific Performing Arts Network. We also sought to boost the morale of our athletes by maintaining funding for training, seminars, and workshops for sports, including but not limited to bowling, arnis, among others. Upon the initiative of Senator Francis Tolentino, more funds will also be devoted for the training budgets of our national athletes competing in international competitions, such as the delayed 2020 Tokyo Olympics and the SEA Games in Vietnam. Mr. President, these are but some of the highlights of the amendments your committee has incorporated into the measure with the help of most, if not all, of our colleagues in the Senate, as well as their hardworking staff. Much thanks should also be directed to the Senate Secretariat, who came to work amid the threat of the pandemic and stayed with us well into the night during the debates. Special mention should also be given to the men and women of the LBRMO, especially OIC Director Irene Palanca and former Director General Attorney Yoli Doblon. They're here, Mr. President, for their invaluable work in crafting and amending this measure. Minsan po, sa opisina na po natutulog ang mga yan. The amendments we propose demonstrate that we are doubling down on our commitment to respond more effectively to the pandemic, on our motivation to help more of our people struck by calamity, and our single-minded focus on restarting the economy. Ultimately, what we have is an improved version where funds are poured into programs, activities, and projects that deserve it the most. Hopefully, inside the line items of this budget, our people see that indeed there is a path out of this pandemic and recession, and that we are not without hope, that we can still emerge a stronger, safer, more inclusive, and more prosperous country. Thank you, dear colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we close the period of amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of amendments closed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we shall now vote on second reading on House Bill number 7727. Mr. President, I so move that we vote.
Any objection? Hearing none. The House Bill 7727 is approved on second reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to congratulate the dear sponsor. This is a certified measure, Mr. President. May we ask the Secretary to read the certification of the national budget?
The Secretary will please read the certification.
9 October 2020, Senator Vicente C. Soto III, Senate President, the Philippine Senate. Mr. Senate President, pursuant to the provisions of Article 6, Section 26 of Paragraph 2 of the 1987 Constitution, I hereby certify to the necessity of the immediate enactment of House Bill number 7727, entitled An Act Appropriating Funds for the Operation of the Government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2021, and for other purposes, in order to address the need to maintain continuous government operations following the end of the current fiscal year, strengthen efforts to respond more effectively to the COVID-19 pandemic, and support initiatives towards the national economic recovery. Best regards, very truly yours, signed, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. With that, I move that we vote on third reading House Bill number 7727. I so move.
Secretary will read the title of the measure and conduct a roll call vote to approve
House-
on third reading.
House Bill number 7727, an act appropriating funds for the operation of the government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2021, and for other purposes. Roll call vote, the Honorable Senators Angara, Binay,
Yes.
Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon,
Yes.
Gatchalian, Go, Gordon,
Yes.
Ontiveros,
Aye.
Lacson, Lapid,
Yes.
Marcos,
Yes.
Pacquiao,
Yes.
Pangilinan,
Yes.
Pimentel III,
Yes.
Poe,
Yes.
Recto,
Yes.
Revilla Jr.,
Yes.
Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar,
Yes.
Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
Yes.
Narinig niyo ba? May bumoto ba? Thumbs up. Nag-thumbs up. May nag-no ba?
Mix naman na si Joe. Other papasok.
Wala si Subiri. Wala. Di ba lang? Okay lang. Hindi naman. With 21 affirmative votes, 1 negative vote, no abstention. Huh? No, she said aye.
She said, ay, ba? Kami lahat narinig ko ay nay.
Mr.
Correction.
President,
What was your vote, Senator Ontiveros?
it was I. It was yes, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. The Secretariat is not used to the British affirmative vote.
I apologize if
They
it was
ang rinig
Mr.
nila.
President. it was an I. Yes, Mr. President.
All right. So 22 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention.
Medyo matagal. Palinis.
House Bill 7727 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President,
Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Senator Villanueva, is recognized.
thank you, Mr. President. This is just to commend and congratulate our good friend, our seatmate, our brother, the hardworking chairperson of the Committee on Finance, Senator Sani Angara, for his dauntless efforts, Mr. President, to pass the budget on time and walk the extra mile in sacrificing for the betterment of our country and people. So we just want to put that on record, Mr. President, and congratulations to the entire institution. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, may I add also, we'd like to congratulate as well and thank the LBRMO for such a job well done. Attorney Doblon, who's been with us since I was a young boy, Mr. President. And Director Irene, who of course took over. I was still in Congress, si Attorney Doblon na po nandyan, and Director Irene, who took over such a great job to all of you, to all the men and women of LBRMO. Hindi na natutulog. Nandun na sila natutulog, Mr. President, sa opisina nila. Kaya, minsan kasama si Sen Sani sa gitna nila. Hindi yata alam ni Tutsi yun.
You were just, can we have the other session here adjourned?
Mukhang na-excite sila, Mr. President.
No, they had a discussion about the A's and A's.
Yes.
Anyway,
Mr. President.
Before I recognize Senator Pangilinan, may I just place on record that I received a call from Senator De La Rosa that if he was here, he would have voted in favor.
Yes.
All right.
We wish him well, Mr. President. I hope
Senator
he's
Pangilinan.
doing well.
Yes, Mr. President. I think the confusion is when you say I in Tagalog, the translation in English is, oh no. And therefore, there was some confusion. Just kidding, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Mr. President.
Levity aside. Yes, Senator Tiveros.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dahil nagiging trilingual na po yung usapang ito. If it is necessary, may I seek the Senate President's guidance? Do we prefer po na we not use I or nay or just yes or no? Or
No.
I can clarify each time I cast an I
You
vote.
can. You may. You can. Parliamentary
Salamat po, Mr.
procedures
President.
actually say that you should do that.
Thank you, Mr.
The ayes and the nays are taken.
Opo.
It's really part of parliamentary procedures. You can say that. It just so happens that you are virtually present and therefore sometimes the sound does not come in as
Opo.
clearly as if you were here present
I
physically.
understand, Mr. President.
So the
And that-
ayes and nays remain. No problem with that.
Salamat po. Maybe just for additional clarity, when I cast an I vote, I'll raise my thumbs up. Salamat po, Mr.
All right.
President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Zubiri, the Secretariat is requesting for 1 minute. Session suspended. Ano yun? Just one clarification
Yes, Mr. President.
needed.
Mr. President,
Senator Zubiri.
yes, thank you, Mr. President. We move that the amendments delivered earlier by Senator Angara and all its text to be inserted into the records of the Senate, Mr. President.
All right.
This amendment.
Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted. Approved.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Right.
And again, once again, Mr. President, we congratulate everyone, all the Vice Chairman, for a job well done. Indeed, this is a very important budget, Mr. President. We are in the midst of a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, and it has nearly paralyzed our economy and has put around 450,000 of our people contaminated to COVID. Even 5 of our colleagues, Mr. President, killing about almost 8,000 Filipinos. So this budget that we passed today, I think will help make the country resilient, no, in the pandemic, because of the pandemic, at least for the year to come. And kailangan na talaga ng taong bayan ito. We'd like to make a report to the Filipino people, Mr. President, that because of your hard work as well, we forgot to congratulate Senate President Soto. Sir, kami nga ay Zoom, nasa online lang po kami. Kayo po ay nandito araw-araw. Kayo po ang totoong trabahador ng Senado, sa totoo lang, Mr. President. We salute you, sir, for a job well done. Even in a scare where we had the other week when we thought we had COVID within our midst, you still came back the next day, and you still continued with your job, Mr. President.
Well, the immunized Senator Lacson also came back.
Yes, Mr. Si Senator, yung vaccination niya po, tigdas pala yun. Tigdas.
Anyway, thank you very much. I am humbled by the words that
Yeah,
you have uttered.
you are an inspiration to all of us, Mr. President. May we recognize Senator Drilon?
Senator Drilon is recognized.
Just a parliamentary inquiry we may have missed. I may have missed it. But were the amendments formally approved by the chamber?
Yes, we did.
Yes, Mr.
And
President.
the manifestation of the insertion of the
Amendments.
line by amendments was made by the majority leader.
Yes, there was a motion. I just wanted to inquire just for the formality of approving the amendments, because I didn't hear it, Mr. President. But if you say that they were approved formally, then I'm satisfied with the response.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, it was included in the motion right after Senator Angara, the chairman of finance, delivered his not a speech. Actually, he delivered his
Summary, the
the
summary
amendments.
of the amendments.
Oh, the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you.
So, thank you, Mr.
Senator
President. Just to let also, many people are online today. We worked in record time, Mr. President. We'd like to put that on record. When we received the budget 3 weeks ago, almost
No,
3 weeks ago, or less than 3 weeks
October
ago.
27.
October 27, Mr. President, we worked despite the calamities. You have to remember we were hit by Ulysses and Rolly at that time. Despite the calamities, we had a brownout of, we had no work for 2 days. We were supposed to work till Friday. What happened was we decided to call off work, Mr. President, that Thursday and Friday, and then work the whole week after that. We did this for the Filipino people, Mr. President. We wanted to show them that we are responsive to the needs, particularly these trying times of the pandemic and the typhoons and calamities that had befell.
Yes, the majority members and the minority members of the Senate, the entire Senate,
The entire Senate, Mr. President,
deserves the appreciation of our
as well as the staff,
Thank
Mr.
you.
President, of the senators,
Yes.
all the senators that were very, very helpful. So
All right,
moving on,
Majority Leader.
thank you, Mr. President. Moving on, Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 1357.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration is in order.
Thank you, Mr. President. May we recognize our distinguished colleague, Senator Pia S. Cayetano, to sponsor the period of amendments, Mr. President. We're at the period of amendments now, and I asked the body that if we can resume the period of amendments.
So the parliamentary status of 1357 is that we are still in the period of amendments, and
That is correct,
Senator
Mr.
Cayetano is recognized. We what do you call this? We did not approve it on second reading last night because there was a request by Senator Gordon that he is going to propose his amendments this morning.
That's correct, Mr. President.
All right, so that's a parliamentary status. Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized unless Senator Cayetano is anything else. would like to
I do,
recognize Senator
Mr.
Gordon.
President, may I have
Go ahead,
the floor
Senator
for
Gaitan.
2 minutes? Thank you, thank you. Mr. President, I'd like to start this day with a brief overview of where we are because we were very close to passing it on second reading yesterday, and a lot of our colleagues graciously joined us again, to be sure that we were complete. So I'd like to take this opportunity that everyone is, most are online and we have quite a number on the floor, to just explain to you the major changes that we have gone through. Dear colleagues, this is a very different product that we have before us today compared to what it first was in Sitira, and then what it was later on when it was reinvented and even renamed to create right after the COVID hit us. And then today, after daily patagalan sa gabi na interpellations and amendments that I have accepted, Mr. President. So I'd like to point out, I think most of you by now know that the major change on the corporate side is the 30% to 25% income tax for corporations. Immediately, we lowered by 5%. Hindi na yan 1% per year. But I'm not sure if all of you know that just the other day, we also accepted a major change introduced by the Senate President Pro Temp on the corporate income tax. It is now only 20%. Ulitin ko po para sa hindi nakarinig. 20% na lang ang corporate income tax for those with income below 5 million. It's a big step forward, dear colleagues. Ang daming nag-aabang nito, and for also those who did not catch the heart-wrenching speech or statement of our majority floor leader, he spoke on behalf of all the other SMSE. Siya po ay isang medium-sized businessman na nag-aantay nitong break na ito. Wala silang natatanggap na incentives, wala silang inaantay na favorable income tax returns or any holiday. They are simply toiling away day in and day out. And yung pagbaba ng corporate income tax to 25%, ang laking bagay na. And yet, many who are earning much less, yung mga may mga tindahan, may mga talyer, marami tayong mga kabataan ngayon nag-start ng business from the homes. If they put up a corporation, 20% na lang ang tax. So that's something I am very proud of, and I really thank the leadership, the Senate President, the Majority Floor Leader, the Senate President Pro Temp, who very patiently worked with me so that I could grasp these concepts and discuss it with DOF. I thank you for those interventions, also our Minority Floor Leader. So we were able to put this together. Over time, hindi ito minadali, no? We've come in daily to complete this work, to keep checking with DOF and pushing hanggat kaya. And then on the incentive side, I've only mentioned the corporate side. On the incentive side, dear colleagues, I understand that there are still some who do not understand what we are trying to do on the incentive side. Dear colleagues, it's very simple. We have investors who have invested in our country. Some have been here for a few years, some have been here for decades. And the problem is, for a lot of them, we have no idea if the incentives that we have given them, have they paid back in terms of creating jobs, in terms of creating the business environment to spur our economy. We have no basis of knowing that. Wala tayong data. And that's the reason for the creation of the FIRB, for all the IPAs to be able to work with the FIRB to provide the data that is needed so that we can do our cost-benefit analysis, so that there can be accountability. Remember, this is foregone revenues. Katulad ng sinabi ni Majority Floor Leader, ang mga MSMEs nagbabayad ng tax. Ito po, we gave them a special privilege na hindi magbabayad ng tax. All we're asking in return is that there is accountability. Hindi kayo magbabayad ng tax, pero yung mga kondisyon that were given to you, we will now monitor it to ensure that yung pinangako nyong job creation, nandyan. Ang pinangako nyong capital investment, nandyan. Ano naman ang masama doon? So alam ko na maraming nagtatawag na mga governors na concerned sa probinsya. Dear governors, you have nothing to worry about. The magic number of 5% GIE, which was the privilege or the special rate granted to the investors in the eco zones in your areas, will remain. Hindi ho tatanggalin. Ang tagal ho natin itong tinrabaho with DOF. At in the early version, they wanted to make it 10%. It is now 5% pa rin. So yung existing investors nyo will continue, I repeat, continue to enjoy 5%. So kung nakakarinig ako ng aalis sila, ibig sabihin hindi kayo nakinig. Ibig sabihin hindi kayo nakipagpuyat sa amin habang dinidiscuss namin to na we retained the 5% for those who are currently invested here for 10 years. Dati, 2 to 7 years yon under si Tira. Under to create, naging 4 to 9 years. Ngayon, regardless kung sino ka, may 10 years ka. So but by that time, mga 60 years old na si MFL, no? Mga ganon, okay? After that, you can reapply. Kung pasok naman yung business mo, up to 17 years. So by that time, mag-80 na si MFL. So my dear colleagues, please, let's be responsible, no? Wala naman akong inaano naman na, I wouldn't know because none of you have called me directly asking for clarifications, which you know I would happily give. Pero please help me explain this to your governors, to your mayors who are calling you, panicking, and then you recite facts to me as if naman tayo dito sa Senate, we would allow something to happen that would close down these businesses. I think that is not fair to our colleagues. Siguro kahit ako, sabihin nyo, I have to defend the DOF position. Pero I work with our colleagues and we have been able to secure that 5% for practically 27 years henceforth. So can we put an end to this miscommunication, this misinformation, that yung binigay natin na package makakasira? Okay? Kasi mas gumanda pa siya for other businesses. Depending on the IPA and the business, some of them are not granted income tax holiday. Ngayon, yung mga bago, magkaka-income tax holiday pa. It got even sweeter. So, dear colleagues, I hope that answers the questions. Again, I am happy to answer more questions kahit natapos na yung period of interpellation. I think the majority floor leader, the Senate President Pro Temp can defend me on that. Wala akong tinanggihan na questions nyo. Pero sana naman, magkatulungan naman tayo to spread the right information. I ask that of you. Because it's not fair din naman sa atin na akala nila napipilitan kayong magpasa ng hindi magandang terms. That's why ine-explain ko po sa inyo ang terms na ito. Now, and I think this is my last point. Early on, before we tackled the budget, we already presented, actually it is the Senate President Pro Temp who presented the options on how to deal with the incentives. One option was to remove from the coverage of the FIRB and create the IPAs, no? And then the second option was actually I ended up choosing the second and a hybrid of the third, which is retaining a very, very favorable income tax rate, which is the one I've been explaining to you. So, Mr. President, we have rejected already that option of the IPAs being carved out of CREATE. That has already been rejected. And instead, is we created a very favorable environment for export industry separately and for domestic industry separately. So in this case, kahit saan ka pa mag-invest, if you are an exporter, you will benefit from the package that we created. It is not just for one particular IPA. And the same way, if you are a domestic manufacturer, you will benefit from it kahit saan ka din maging locator. So that is what we did, Mr. President. That has already been approved. All the provisions in the bill that we have now revolve around that kind of system, Mr. President. So I just finally like to emphasize that that is the essence of CREATE, that there will be an FIRB, which, again, based on compromise version coming out of the period of amendment, investments 1 billion and below, the IPAs will handle it. 1 billion and above, the FIRB will handle it. But it will still go through the IPA. Kung ano yung trabaho ng IPA ngayon, yung pa rin ang trabaho nila. Sila pa rin yung makikipag-meeting, sila pa rin ang makikipag-negotiate, and then they process the papers. And if it's 1 billion and below, 1 billion and above, then they submit it for the final approval of the FIRB. Dear colleagues, this is the essence of CREATE, so that we have check and balances. If we will take a different position, wala nang CREATE, no? What is the purpose of passing it? If we go through the motions of passing it, I believe it will be vetoed, because the whole essence of CREATE was to create an FIRB that will ensure that all the IPAs are keeping track of what their investors are investing, what they are doing, if they are complying with the labor laws. Because as of now, we do not have info that tells us that they have been compliant. So I leave it at that, Mr. President. I am sorry that I took more than 2 or 3 minutes, but I really wanted to take this opportunity to keep our colleagues up to speed on the changes we have made in the last few days. Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. President, I did emphasize already that when we studied CREATE, from the start we knew, and we made it very clear, that carving out IPAs from the FIRB is not an option, because it is the essence of FIRB that lahat mamomonitor. Wala naman hong masama doon, kasi it's our check and balances. It's accountability, Mr. President, which I believe, as a senator, I am proud that nangunguna tayo to demand accountability. Diba? May standards naman po tayo. Tandaan nyo, the best example I can give is yung sinabi nga po ni Majority Floor Leader Mig Subiri. The average micro, small, medium businessman does not receive any incentives. Buong tax bayad siya. Ni 1% doon, walang benefits. Here we are, thousands of investors, wala kayong tax. Go ahead, magnegosyo kayo dito, walang tax. Why? Because nangako sila that they will create thousands of jobs. Nangako sila that they will be bringing in technology and sharing that with the Filipino people. Nangako sila that they will invest in training. So marami silang pangako. Natupad ba? Sana. But we don't know. And that's all we're asking for, the accountability. And that is why this is very important. Pag tinanggal natin yan, mabibito siguro to, no? Because that was the whole essence of this. And what is the effect? Mabito to, pati ho lahat ng tinabaho natin. Yung pinaganda natin yung tax rate, binabaan natin from 30 to 25 to 20. We are now making all these investors accountable to us. Wala lahat yon. Sayang naman, Mr. President. So yun lang, dear colleagues. I hope I have been able to enlighten you somehow, because I know you also have constituents, maybe businessmen friends, governors asking you. I hope you will be able to explain to them and be proud about the work that we are doing here. Thank you.
All right, we're still in the period of amendments. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're waiting for the proposal of our distinguished colleague from Zambales.
I would just like
Senator
to,
Gordon, Richard Gordon, gentleman from Zambales is recognized.
ayoko na sana pong pahabain pero may pinapapatamaan ba po ba si Senator Cayetano na hindi ako nag-a-attend, hindi kami nag-a-attend, hindi kami nakikinig?
She was pertaining to those calling. She was pertaining to those calling us, the LGUs that were calling,
Yes.
not any member of the Senate.
Not at all, Mr. President. And I simply was pointing out that some of the discussions happened late at night. And I very well understand that not everyone is online all the time. Wala akong ano yun, wala akong paghuhusga. I consider it my job to explain to his honors, our colleagues. Wala akong problema sa akin yun.
I'm willing to stipulate, Mr. President, that every senator here is doing her job. And that every senator here has a point of view. It may not coincide with one another, but that doesn't mean we're not doing our job, Mr. President. That's what I'd like to say. Now, Mr. President, kasi narinig ko, kinakausap na yung mga governors and mayors. I have to. These are our constituents. Ako lang naman ang kumausap ngayon ng umaga at nagpaalam ako kay Senate President. Hindi ako nagtatraidor, nagtataligod ko. Hindi ko sabihin na gagawa ako ng gagawin na hindi nyo nalalaman. I mean, ayoko na papain to, but anyway, I just want to make sure that's clear. Now, Mr. President, also, any bill can be vetoed, Mr. President. Why are we afraid of the bill being vetoed? If it's a bad law, the President, that's his prerogative. If it's a good law, we can make the protest. I mean, yung rich bill ko, both houses of Congress, binito yan eh. Sino hindi sasama ang loob? Hindi ako sumama ang loob. Inulit ko ulit. Ilalaban ko ulit. But it doesn't mean that the end of the world will happen if we make amendments to this bill. I just happen to believe that one size doesn't fit all. That's why sinasabi niyong carving out. Iba yan eh. Iba yung Freeport eh. Iba yung special economic zones eh. At iba yung mga competition natin eh. When you say, for example, that binaba nyo yung tax na 20%. Alam po ba ninyo, ma'am, na yung 20% na binaba, pag tinignan ninyo yun, lumalabas na ilan lang yung tatamaan talaga kung talaga tutusin. Sa Hong Kong, sa Singapore or sa China, sa Thailand, wala silang threshold. Dito nilagay niyo ng threshold na sana magkano yung threshold nila? 5 million. May threshold na 5 million. Sa Thailand 20%, walang threshold. Sa China in fact, walang threshold. Pagka nagbigay ka ng magandang investment na kailangan nila, they're even willing to go down to 15%, Mr. President. Dapat narinig lahat sa mga arguments na yan to enrich our knowledge. Hindi naman sinasabi lahat eh. Hindi naman natin kaya sabihin lahat eh. Kaya sumasagot ako ngayon, yung 20% ng Thailand at saka Vietnam, walang threshold. Itong 20% natin, para tayong inuuto. Ibig sabihin, ito, 20%. Dapat masaya ka na dyan. Salamat po. Magpapasalamat ako. Pero sabihin natin yung totoo. Yung ibang kalaban natin, walang threshold. At ang Singapore, still 17%. Ang Singapore ay 17%. At kita na nyo, sa foreign direct investment, nangunguna sila palagi. So, Mr. President, sabi nga ng Korean Ambassador, binaba nyo ng 25%, pero matatalo pa rin kayo sa ibang mga kalaban nyo. Now, I'm not after that, Mr. President. Yung sinasabing carving out. I'm only after yung tinatawag natin FIRB. Masyado ang paghihimasok naman noon na wala nang diskarte ang local officials. I will have everybody know, Mr. President, with all due respect, that Subic, wala naman sumama sa amin eh. Yung Clark, nagibayan. Pinuntahan ko, sinama ko doon sa bill. Tinawag ko yung Chamber of Commerce ng Clark, kaya nabuhay yan unti-unti. In fact, in-spoil ni President Ramos ang Clark, ginawa niyang Freeport. Sabi ko, hindi po pwedeng gawin Freeport. Ginawa pa rin Freeport, di ako umangal. Tapos sa intern ni President Ramos, tinanggal. Yun yung sinasabi ng ibang mga tiga Clark na sometime about 19 something, tinanggal yon. And ako nagbalik in law. Kung talaga tutusin competition namin yan, hindi, wala tayong competition within ourselves. We should help one another. And that's my point, Mr. President. Bakit ba parang masama ang loob ng Department of Finance na kailangan na sasabihin natin na tanggapin natin yan. Hindi naman natin pwedeng tanggapin yan eh. Yung FIRB, mayroon threshold na 1 billion. Pag bumaba ka, piso po yun, piso, 1 billion pesos. Sisiw yan. Ako nakakakuha ng investment ng araw katulad ng Coastal Petroleum, $100 million, Mr. President. Ibig sabihin, maghihintay pa ako, tatakbo pa ako sa FIRB para mapasa yung bill na yan, mapasa yung Coastal Petroleum, may mga investment na ganyan. Yan ang mahirap dyan eh. That's another layer of bureaucracy. Bakit hindi natin payagan? Yung mga bilyar, lumaki. Hindi naman nakikialam ang gobyerno sa kanila. Yung mga Henry C., lumaki sila. Hindi naman nakikialam ang gobyerno sa kanila. Hindi ba pwede yung local government lumaki nang walang pakialam ang gobyerno? Huwag na natin sabihin, huwag makialam. Meron naman talagang limitation. Pero kung may kusang loob, may malasakit at kapwa-tao yan, at tataas sila katulad ng Bataan. Namatayan. Hinawakan pa ng tatay ni Senator Cayetano yan. Namatayan. Yan ang unang-una, pinakauna, Mr. President. Namatayan. Tapos yung nakiusap sila kay Senator Legarda, ibalik yung kung pwede gawin Freeport. Ayaw na yung mga tiga-Bataan. Ako lang ang naglakas ng loob, binigay nila sa akin, naipasa namin yung bill. Ngayon, happy sila. Mas, kung narinig yung sinasabi kanina ni Governor Garcia, sila ang pinaka-konti sa PP, sa mga internal revenue allotment at prolific job generator sila. First province that is insurgency free due to lots of available jobs. Peace and order is okay. LGU is less of a burden to the national government. And they created jobs, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, what are we talking about here? Create is good. But it's not just about taxes. It's about jobs. When you have jobs, taxes naturally follow. Now, nasabi nyo, 30, 40, 70 years. Bakit? Ang tagal na nga nung special economic zone ng Bataan eh. Namatay nga eh. So binuhay natin. Kung ayaw nyo na bigyan later on, bakit natin gagawing isang general law to amend special laws? Lahat yan is special law. Subic is a special law. Clark is a special law. Bataan is a special law. Bakit biglang isang talukbong lang general law, bahala na si Batman, kami na ang bahala, huwag na kayo makialam. Ang sinasabi ko lang sa amendment ko, and I've already submitted it, Mr. President, if you want FIRB, let it monitor all these economic zones. But it should not be the one who will say no. It should be submitted to the President. The President should be the one to say, at the advice of FIRB, alam nyo naman sa taas kung sino huling makabulong, hindi natin papayagan yan. Dahil masyadong malaki yung binibigay yung incentives. Katulad yan ba, binigyan natin ng maraming incentives yung airport na gagawin ni Ramon Ang. Lahat tayo bumoto. Why? Because gusto natin eh. Dapat bigyan ng investment. Kaya nga sinasabi ng mga tao doon sa lahat ng makausap namin, imbis na bawasan yung incentives, dagdagan nyo. Because ano ba ang kalaban natin? Ang kalaban natin, COVID. Walang makapagtrabaho. Ang kalaban natin ay yung mga bagyo. Walang makapagtrabaho. Ang kalaban natin, napag-iwanan na tayo sa pansitan, Mr. President. Hindi na nga pansitan eh. Panay lugaw na lang ang kinakain natin eh. Nangyayari sa atin eh. Hirap na yung mga tao. So, Mr. President, kaya ako nilagay yan. Malinaw naman yung aking kuhan. Talo lahat sa parada eh. Tingnan nyo. Foreign direct investments natin, January to June 2020, is $2.9 billion. Hindi ba tayo pwedeng maging Indonesia? $136 billion. Di ba tayo pwedeng maging Vietnam? $865 billion. Pagmamalaki na ang tumulong sa akin ng Department of Finance yung panahon ko, hinarang pa. Lahat ng ginawa ko sa tourism, marimbawa, yung TIESA, pinatay nila ng 7 years, hindi binigyan. Tapos ngayon, tatanggalin na naman natin yung TIESA. Yun ang sinasabing stability and consistency of policy, Mr. President. Bago tayo maging dahas at sundin natin lahat ng sinasabi nila, I'm sure everybody here has a backbone. Pakita naman natin na, hindi kami papayag dyan. Magpaligaw naman tayo, huwag naman natin ibigay lahat lock, stock, and barrel. Na dahil gusto ni Sani Dominguez, gusto ng finance, basta. Eh di kung gusto na pabito, di i-veto nila. Mas gusto ko nga yun eh. Para yung papasok na presidente in 2022, meron siyang diskarte na mag-propose. But I'd rather say na dapat, kung mag-a-amend tayo, isa-isayin natin. Huwag naman yung lahat one size fits all. Tama nga yung sinabi, kung lahat pare-pareho na, ano magkakatalo? Ang dali sabihin location, yung malayong-malayo, nasa dulo ng mundo. Pareho ang, di pupuntahan niya, para rin nagbibigay ka ng relief. Pagbaba mo sa airport, yung pinakamalapit na evacuation center, yun ang pinakamarami. Pero yung nasa bundok, hindi na inaabot. Yan ang analogy ko dyan. So, and please, I really do not appreciate the tone na parang binigay na namin lahat. Hindi naman namin hihingi ng bigay na kayo lahat. Isa lang ang gusto ko na pinapakiusap ko. Na pwede naman pagbigyan yung FIRB. Saan ba galing yan? Mr. President, sino uupo dyan? Mga cabinet members. Kami ni Senator Junor pa nag-uusap. Dapat ilagay natin mga professionals. Panay kabinete na naman yan eh. Bilangin nyo lahat ang mga ginawa nating mga commissions na may mga cabinet members. Yan damakmak lahat yan. Hindi naman nag-a-attend. Ang nag-a-attend yung assistant ng Prinsipe de Judas, Mr. President. Ganyan lahat ang ginagawa niyan. Sa totoo lang. Alam niyo yan. And don't tell me you do not know that. It's there. Why is this happening? Because they want all the money. Anong sagot sa kanya? Napakasimple lang. Common sense. Tinanong nila, sige, kukunin niyo yung, sabihin niyo, you will create income. That is in Kuwait, Mr. President. In Kuwait. Hindi pa sigurado. But on the other hand, pagtanong sa kanila, bakit? Nung sinabi niyo ba yung create bill, meron naman nag-commit na pupunta sa atin? Yun ang mga ambassador, lahat ng makausap, sila sabi, mahihirapan pa rin kayo bakit? Makakasiguro ba tayo na pagka binigay natin yan, tatakbo lahat ang investment sa atin? No, sir. Mahirap yan. It comes from somebody who doesn't have the experience to go state to state, city to city of the world, and really start looking at opportunities so that they can come in. Sabi nga, there are no investors, sabi nga ni Congressman Joey Garcia, sabi niya, to Mr. Chua, he pointed out to DTI Secretary Lopez, then they said there are no investors lining up to invest due to create. Wala talaga. Because ako masaya ako ibababa yung corporate investment, yung corporate income tax. Pero pag nagbaba ka at hindi mo nabawi, paano yan? Di mas malalim ang hukay natin. We must make haste. Let us make haste slowly. I'm not gonna do this because of Secretary Dominguez. He's my batchmate. He is my friend. If he still considers me his friend, kahit na pinabito niya yung nakiusap na ako, kasama ko sa dorm yan, mayaman na pamilya sila, di sila masasaktan. Ang nakikita ko, yung mga nasaktan nung pumutok yung pinatubo. Ang naalala ko, hindi maalis sa aking mind and my heart, yung mga talaga nakatalukbong, walang bahay, walang pagkain. Ano ang ginawa namin? Ginawa namin ito, ang objective ng lahat ng industrial zones is to create jobs. That is the formula that hindi mabali-bali. Ginawa ng Korea, ginawa ng Japan after the war, ginawa ng Taiwan, lahat sila create jobs yung araw. Ang mga Reebok, ang mga Nike, galing yan sa Korea. Ngayon, lumaki na sila, wala nang Reebok doon. Itinapon na sa atin. Malis na rin yung Reebok. Nagpunta na ngayon siguro, nasa Cambodia na. So, Mr. President, ganun ang takbo eh. And besides, the paradigm has changed. Hindi na China ngayon na sikat. Hinahati na. Binibigay na ng buong mundo dito sa Japan. Sabi ng Japan, I'm willing to spend several hundred billion para lumipat yung nasa China at lumipat sa ibang bayan. Sabi ng ibang mga tao sa mga Amerikano, lilipat tayo, hindi na dyan. Mr. President, take a look at some of the pictures of Pinatubo. Pwede ba dahan-dahanin niyo para makita? Pag nakita niyo, ganyan ka itsura namin ng Pinatubo. Nagbubuhat tayo, mga ita, kawawa yan, ayan, sa San Marcelino, lahat dyan. Nakikita ba yan? Ayan. Ayan, ganyan kami nung araw. Lumutang kami dyan, Mr. President, nalinis namin lahat dyan. Yan ang itsura namin. nagwalis kami, nag-payloader kami. Kaya sanay na sanay ako sa Cagayan, may payloader kami doon. Sa Marikina, may payloader ng Red Cross doon. Nasanay ako dyan. Ayoko, nahihirapan yung tao na tumitira sa isang bakuran na nagsabog ang mga basura, nagsabog ang mga hero, hirap na hirap. O tapos ano ginawa? Nung ginawa natin yung Subic para mag-create ng jobs, Mr. President. Ano nangyari? Ayan, makikita nyo, pinaalis natin yung base pagkatapos. O pagkatapos ngayon, wala tayong trabaho. Eh sino may kasalanan? Tapos nakuha natin yung Hanjin. Umalis yung Hanjin. O, nagbigay ba yung Pinas? Wala naman Wala naman na ibigay na trabaho pa yan Ayaw nga kaming isali sa meeting. Tinatanong ko ano ba nangyayari dyan sa iniwan ng Hanjin, ang pagkalaki-laki? Dapat dyan mapasok agad. Kung talagang popular ang Pilipinas, may infrastructure dyan. May mga graving yard dyan. Meron mga lugar na malalawak yan na pwedeng lagyan ng industrial park. May ginagawa ba? Wala po. Awanin, nalpasin, waay po. Tapos sasabihin ngayon, ito ang magic formula. Hindi po ako naniniwala sa magic formula. All of my 75 years old, I am ready to say, ang experience ko is hard knock. Talagang hirap. Tumahan kami sa butas ng karayom. Tapos ito, isang palakpak, biglang gaganda. Excuse me. Alam mo, out of 30 firms leaving China, only 3 moved to the Philippines while 15 firms moved to Vietnam. Anong klase naman yan, Mr. President? Nung inumpisa namin ng Subic, alam nyo, ayan pumunta lahat yan. Kung papakita ko sa inyo lahat ang pumunta, ayan, mga presidente ng ibang bansa, Thailand yan, noong araw. Ayan, I think that's lahat halos kinukuha natin, pati si Pat Robertson, kilala ni Joel Villanueva yan. Ayan Shell gas trading in one day. Sinulat pa nila sa libro, they got the investment from Subic at nagawa yung base nung Malampaya. Sabi walang corruption, walang under the table. Ang kalabanan dito, speed is the name of the game. They went there because they had incentives. They went there because the people were hardworking. They went there because the people were honest. Mr. President, hindi sinasabi na, pag ito nangyari, masaya kayo, meron kayo 20%. Do you know yung 20% ninyo na sinasabi nyo doon sa taxes, ng corporate income taxes, out of 1 million na may hirap na SM na tinatawag natin, small and medium business enterprises, of 1 million establishments, only 180,277 firms are stock corporations based on 2018 data. Ano ba ang pinag-uusapan natin dito? Maghahanap tayo ng trabaho tapos ipapangako natin ang langit at lupa. Gaganda ang buhay natin because nangyari yung create. Create means create opportunities, jobs. Yung taxes will follow, Mr. President. That is the story of the world. Kung hindi magkakaroon ng trabaho ang tao, sino magbabayad? Wala. So ayan ang sinasabi ng lahat. Pakinggan natin. Huwag naman tayong nasa tore tayo na hindi natin pinakikinggan yung mga tao. At pakinggan nyo rin naman yung masasamang experience na inabot namin. Yung maasim na experience, yung hirap na hirap. Yung wala kang tubig, hinihintay mo yung pinatubo. Nung maaayos na namin, nakalinis kami, biglang pinaalis yung base. Pakinggan nyo naman yung mga tao na naglilinis doon na hindi nila bahay. Pakinggan nyo yung airport na pinagawa namin, umutang kami, nabayaran namin yung utang. No thanks to DOF. Pakinggan nyo naman na nakuha namin yung Taiwan. Nag-joint venture kami ng Taiwan. Pinagalitan pa ako ni Romulo dahil pinatugtog ko raw yung national anthem ng Taiwan. Sabi ko, yung ba yun? Akala ko, tumayo lahat ang tao, pumapalakpak. Akala ko, yun ang number 1 hit song sa Taiwan. Anything to get investments, Mr. President. Ginagawa namin. And I come from that kind of experience. Ayan, pupunta ako dyan, alas 6 sa madaling araw, gumagawa ng Reebok yung mga tao. 3 o'clock in the morning, yan ang mga una namin. Pupunta ako dyan, ayan, yung gumagawa ng telepono. Umalis na yung mga yan, Mr. President. Thompson, umalis na yan. Umalis na yan, Mr. President. Sandali lang aalis. O ano ngayon ang pampapalit natin? Wala. Bahala na si Batman. O yan. Nakikita naman yun. Yan, Subic Technopark. Japanese yan. Anong ginagawa niya? Yung ginagamit nyo sa blood pressure na Omron. Yung mga lock doon sa mga cable sa mga train. Doon ginagawa. Ang dami ginagawa dyan, Mr. President. Hirap na hirap kami dyan. Haharap ako sa hapon. nagsisigarilyo, tinitingnan ako na mababa ang tingin sa akin. Tapos mo sasabihin sa akin, ba't ba ganyan kayo mga Pilipino? Iba-iba yung mga pupunta dito, iba-iba sinasabi. Yan ang problema. Lahat yan sinabi sa akin yan kanina. Paano? Babago-bago tayo, Mr. President. Akin na nga yung action ni Hans Axman yan. Itong tao ito namatay. Australian-German, Mr. President. I saved his life in San Carlos. He was bleeding to death. I got him a helicopter, got him out. And he was about to leave the Philippines. Nagkaroon siya ng lakas ng loob. O yan, on my last birthday, napakabait ng mama niya, nagbigay sa akin ng aso. Ayan o. Yan yung mga aso, yung mga giraffe na nilalagay sa Harrods, Mr. President. Namatay na siya. Alam niyo ba ang billing niya? Sorry baka magalit kayo sa akin. Sabi niya doon sa best friend niya, huwag niyong pababayaan itong 3 taong ito. Yan ang tumutulong sa atin para naiwan tayo dito dahil nung tinatanggal yung investment incentives ng Clark, ang tumulong sa atin si Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, si Rick Gordon, at saka later on si Vince Dizon. Mr. President, pag nakikita ito, naluluha ko. Bakit naman hindi? Nakikita natin na palaki yan. Madaling sabihin hindi ka nakikinig. Sige, hindi ako nakikinig. Pero umaandar yung utak ko po. Nagbabasa rin naman po ako. At ayoko naman sasabihin nyo na, wala ka, absent ka. Hindi po, araw-araw nandyan ako. Ako'y mahabang mag-interpolate. Kinakansyawan pa ako nung inaanak ko na, napakahabang magtanong ni Senator. Kinakansyawan ako ni Senator Dillon. But that's why we're here. To deliberate. That's what I meant, to deliberate. To ask questions. To debate. To find out what is the best possible scenario. The most disadvantageous position for our country. If we do not do that, Mr. President, what are we? A Senate of yes men? I don't think we are. I think we're a Senate of honorable men. We call ourselves honorable. But I'll be damned if I'm just going to follow a hook, line, and sinker what somebody who has never helped me in Subic, never helped us in Clark, will now do. And now, kukunin pa yung Hanjin, si Raro may hawak. Di bahala kayo, wala. Yung Hanjin pumunta po yan dahil nung ginawa yung airport na Subic, presidente pa lang yung naging chairman ng Hanjin. Kaya nung nakita niya yung patrabaho, na sinasabi ko, pulutin niyo yung mga sigarilyo niya. Tanong ko, what are you building? Sabi ng mga Koreano, an airport. No. Sabi ko, bakit no? Sabi niya, no, you're building our country. Ano sinabi ko, nandun pala yung presidente. Kaya nung naglipat ang Hanjin na maglalagay ng malaking barko, na in our imagination, we became the 4th biggest shipbuilder in the world. Hindi ako inimbita. Galit sa akin si Gloria. At hinanap niya ako kay Gloria. Pinatawag bigla ako ni Gloria. Tapos sabi ko, hindi ako pupunta. Galit kayo sa akin Ano nangyari? They gave me a dinner in Manila Hotel. Sabi niya, you know we came here? Because of you and your people. Ganyan ang istorya ng investments, Mr. President. Hindi yung incentives lamang. Hindi yung sinasabi nga nila, Cynthia na, sipag at syaga, malasakit, talagang araw ginagawa mong gabi, gabi ginagawa mong araw. Akala natin, papalakpak lang tayo. Open sesame, bukas na. Tanongin ko kayo yung tanong sa akin ni Congressman Obet. Bakit? Nakapila na ba yung papasok dyan? Pag binaba nyo yung taxes? Paano pipila yan? May mas mababa sa atin. Paano pipili yan? Ang COVID natin, isa tayo sa pinakamataas. Yan ang gusto ko lang paabot. Mahaba na nasabi ko, I can talk till we're blue in the face, Mr. President. Kung talagang ayaw, ayaw. Kung gusto, maraming paraan. Kung ayaw, maraming dahilan. But there will be help to pay for our people when you start seeing our people go hungry. Do you see sites? Yung mga nahihirapan? Dito sa, nakikita natin sa COVID. Driver po ako. Can you give me some money? Wala akong trabaho. Hindi ako makapagtrabaho. I saw that in Pinatubo when I passed by Lubao. Guagua. Yung mga ita. Yung mga tao. Can you give me some money? Wala akong pera. Maawa na kayo sa amin. Ganyan ba gagawin natin sa tao? Countries grow because of the work ethic. Countries grow because of... Countries grow because we make good laws. We don't make good laws if we're going to make a great loss. L-O-S-S, Mr. President. That is what is happening here. Forgive me. I am indeed full of passion. That's God's gift to me and my mother and my father's gift to me. And I will use it every time. Because I like to believe that what we're saying is what we believe in. I cannot answer and have somebody tell me, okay yan, akong bahala. No. Walang akong bahala. Tayo ang bahala. Or we will just be watchers. Outsiders, sabi nga ni Albert Camus. You're an outsider, you're a mere spectator. It happens because people, like sila Henry C., like sila ibang mga tao na mayayaman dito sa Pilipinas, they roll up their sleeves and they work hard. That's how it happens, Mr. President. If we make a good law, better yet. I'm happy binabaan nyo yung 20%, but don't make me feel like I'm indebted because pag sinabi sa akin nung, ilan sasabihin sigurado, 20% yung tax nyo, may threshold kayo 5 million. Sisiw yung 5 million, hindi pinag-uusapan yan. Ibabaw niyan. Ang pinag-uusapan sa Subic, Mr. President, 50 million pesos, 100 million pesos, $100 million, Mr. President. Can you imagine ang Subic na bayaran namin yung utang namin na $40 million sa World Bank, Mr. President? Dahil bumilip sila, binago nila, ginawa yung runway, nakuha namin ng FedEx. Nung umalis ba yung FedEx, sino nandun? Ako ang pumunta ron, sir. Walang pumuntang galing sa national government. Wala akong nakita ang Department of Finance, Department of Trade, Department of Transportation. Pinakita ko, thank you very much. You help us. Thank you very much for the memories. I had tears in my eyes. So I beg you, carry a little. Let us watch every step we make. How many mistakes have we done from World War II? We lost our reparations payments. We never did anything much about it. We lost our forests. Ngayon hanggang ngayon, sinisita natin illegal logging. We blame everybody, but in reality, if it is to be, it must be up to us. If it is to be, it's because of men of vision. I respect Senator Rector when he said, I spent the last 2-3 years to get 150,000 jobs in Batangas, Mr. President. I respect Senator Dillon when he talks about, ang ganda-ganda na, napapakinggan ko kayo pag nakikinig rin ako pagka nag-uusap kayo dyan na yung river, sinabi mo, ililipat na niya yung bahay, mga middle class. Kailangan in-adjust pa yan, yung mga mahihirap, binigyan natin ng lupa. That's how it's done, Mr. President. Not by the say-so. Hangin yun, Mr. President. Hangin yun. Hindi tayo member ng Mahangin family, gawin natin. So, Mr. President, forgive me for my passion. Forgive me for my intransigence. And I will be intransigent, Mr. President. But I will swear to the altar of everybody, especially God, that I will not kneel down to a co-equal branch of government just because they say so. I will not follow them just because they say so. We would have to do something as a collegiate body to say this is the best. And if you feel that kayo na pressure, well, that's your problem. I'm not even saying that. Bahala na kayo. Pero I speak from experience and from ideals. I don't expect you to listen to me. But take a look. Singapore, a small city state, kasi laki na Subic. Iniwanan tayo in 1969 ba yun? Umiwalay sila sa Malaysia. Yung Hong Kong, inuwanan na ng Shanghai. Yung Korea, kumakain kami, napaka-proud ng ambassador. Nung araw, hirap na hirap. Naghuhukay sila sa snow para may pagkain sila sa summer. Yung tinatawag na kimchi. Pinaghirapan nila lahat yan, Mr. President. At hindi mangyayari. Just on the say so. Ito, galing na ito sa lahat eh. Ito ang foreign direct investments by country. Singapore, ang liit-liit na bayan, 52%. Excuse me! Indonesia, 16%. Thailand, 7%. Philippines, 4%. Pinagdadasal natin, manalo yung Gilas mamaya sa Indonesia. Mr. President, yung basketball, doon na lang tayo nagkukumpit. Paano tayo magkukumpit kung palit tayo ng palit? So, Mr. President, I would like to thank all of you for your patience. If I had offended anybody, I am not sorry. I am not there to be nice to everybody because I think we need to get this done. And we have to do it right. Mr. President. But when somebody insinuates na hindi kami nakikinig, nakikipagpuyatan po ako sa inyo. I get 3 hours of sleep. I have 2 jobs and I try to do it best, Mr. President. And I will not cater to anybody who tells us na hindi tayo nakikinig. I hope that was a wrong impression on my part and I will withdraw it. But as far as I'm concerned, it is bigger fish to fry for this country. We have bigger heights to climb. We have bigger ambitions to make. And this is the people, which is the bottom line. To raise up our people, to make sure that they have self-help, self-reliance, and cooperation. That they can do their work without anybody telling them what to do. Because what we're having is a colonial hangover. Yung mga kasike, yung mga mayayaman na may mga lupa, yan ang mga style yan. Sasabihin tayo kung anong gagawin natin. No, sir. We have a mind of our own. I go back to what I said earlier. There was a Filipina volunteer in Subic. She told me very proudly, sir, yung anak ko gumraduate sa Ateneo. Now, he is in London, Mr. President. I can tell you many, many instances of that. And that, Mr. President, is development. Take a look at that. Walang sweldo yung mga yan. Walang sweldo. Ang nag-support sa Subic, yung City of Olongapo. Wala naman kami nakuha ng pera kagad eh. Baka kala nyo nakakuha kami ng pera kagad. Wala po. So, Mr. President, patawarin niyo ako sa aking pagkakasala pero alam kong ginagawa ko. Hindi katulad ng iba. Sabi nga ni Panginoon ni Kristo, patawarin niyo sila because they know not what they do. Thank you very much, Mr. President. God bless all of us and God bless the Philippines.
Mr. President.
Senator Tolentino is recognized.
Yes, parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President. I was of the impression that some amendments would be proposed by the good gentleman from Olongapo, and may we know the precise nature of the amendments as submitted so that we can study the matter, Mr. President.
Yes,
Well,
Mr. President.
the Senator Gordon submitted to us last night and today copies of his proposed amendments. It's already in the hands of Senator Pia Cayetano. I don't know if you have a copy, but we can recognize Senator Cayetano and listen to what she has to say. Because Senator Gordon did not start with the page-by-page amendments on the proposals that he has.
Mr.
Senator
President,
Cayetano?
Mr. President, I was only reacting kasi to the speech. I would like to
All right.
respond to the amendment. If you let me, I will read it. Hindi naman mahaba ito.
Yes, Mr. President,
Senator Cayetano, yeah?
may I just give a very, very brief response? Mr. President, I would like to thank His Honor Senator Gordon for the statements he made, and there's always something to learn when Senator Gordon takes the floor. And I'd like to clarify that wala ho ako talagang pinaparinggan na hindi nakikinig because I really trust all our colleagues. This is a very technical matter. So I just take time to explain it again in the way that I also needed to be explained to me paulit-ulit din sa staff ko. So ini-explain ko lang kasi baka rin may mga important amendments na tinanggap ako na excited ako about, and that's the only reason why I was saying uulitin ko for the sake of our colleagues and for the other local officials who are listening to us, because I'm so proud and happy about the version that we have now, which is a product of the input of our colleague. That's the only reason po pinauulit-ulit ko yung sinasabi ko. I never take it against anyone, whether they're listening for a few minutes or a few hours, because I know we have our own way of working on our bills. And also, Mr. President, I'd like to take this opportunity to really thank His Honor, because I for one, truly recognize the work that he does. I have always been inspired by His Honor's work. I speak from the heart. I have known him since I was a young girl, and my admiration has never changed. In fact, I would like to put this on record, Mr. President, because I want His Honor to know that I take his views, his opinions very seriously, because he is a man of much experience. He is a very intelligent person, and I truly admire him. Mr. President, my brother Lino, who is the mayor of Taguig City, sent me this message to tell him that he, my brother, is a testament to how fast and decisive Senator Gordon's leadership is and has been in the Red Cross that allows testing. So Taguig City is currently the lowest comparative to cities all over the world, and that is because of the leadership and the inspiration that my brother says comes from no less than Senator Gordon. So ganun ho talaga yung paghanga ko po sa inyo, Senator Gordon. Please don't ever think that I think otherwise. It just so happens that I have this job right now that requires that I take into consideration the position of the government, and then I am trying my best to consolidate the positions of our colleagues, including His Honor's own views on this. So with that, again, I will never tire of expressing my thanks for His Honor for the work that he does and for the input that he provides in the Senate and the guidance that he also gives me.
All right. So to respond to the parliamentary status of the measure, and to respond to the question of the parliamentary inquiry of Senator Tolentino, we recognize Senator Gordon to propose his amendments.
Senator Castano, there is no, I just wanted to clarify that, and there's no intention to try and create slurs, Mr. President. I've known you since you were a little girl.
None taken, Mr. President.
I worked with your father. I saw you running around in Accra when I was there. And so, Mr. President, I just want to say that these are my amendments, Mr. President. Kung tatanggapin, kung mamarapatin. On
We're
page
ready,
12,
Mr. President.
on page 12, line 23. And the purpose of this, Mr. President, line 21, I'm sorry, line 21.
Page 12, line 21.
Yes, sir. Add the phrase, except the Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority, SBMA, Clark Development Corporation, CDC.
After what word, Your Honor?
Sorry.
Line 21, after what word?
The word loss.
After laws.
Yes, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
And I say, except the Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority, SBMA. Sabayan muna ako. Clark Development Corporation, CDC, Authority of Freeport Area of Bataan. Cagayan Economic Zone Authority. Zamboanga City Special Economic Zone Authority. The Tourism Infrastructure and Enterprise Zone Authority. And if I may just add a little bit, that never saw the light of day because it was held in abeyance for 7 years. The Port Point Management Corporation, Aurora Pacific Economic Zone and Freeport Authority. Because I believe in the vision of my good friend, si Senator Angara. And unless otherwise specifically exempted from the coverage of this act. Hence, this provision should read as follows. Section 291. Scope and coverage. This title shall cover all existing investment promotion agencies as defined in this code or related laws, except the Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority, SBMA, Clark Development Corporation, CDC, Authority of Freeport Area of Bataan, AFAB, Cagayan Economic Zone Authority, CESA, Zamboanga City Special Economic Zone Authority, ZCSEZA, close parenthesis, Tourism Infrastructure and Enterprise Zone Authority, TIEZA, the Port Point Management Corporation, PPMC, Aurora Pacific Economic Zone and Freeport Authority, APECO, and unless otherwise specifically exempted from the coverage of this act. That's the first amendment, Mr. President.
Yes. Thank you
What
for
does the
that.
sponsor say?
Yes, thank you for that, Mr. President. May I just ask a clarificatory question from His Honor before I respond?
Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. President, may I just check that, may I get a clear understanding that the point of this amendment is to exempt Subic Bay, Clark Development, and all the other IPAs mentioned from the coverage of the CREATE bill. That is my understanding. Is that correct?
It may be said that that is part of it, but the real intention is to keep these zones going, not lose any further investments, and send a strong signal that we will abide by what we have done so that we can get more investments, Mr. President.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. President, because let me just read, that section is actually the scope and coverage, no? So the first part of the line says that this title shall cover all existing investment promotion agencies, and then His Honor provided the clause that he wants to exempt these IPAs, no? So, Mr. President, may I ask for a may I ask that we tackle this particular amendment now, but at the same time, considering that this is a policy amendment, it's a policy issue, and His Honor has been kind enough to give us a copy of his amendments. All the other amendments that I've seen are related to this in the sense that it is excluding these IPAs from the coverage. So my response to the amendment would actually cover all the other amendments because those are specific lines introduced throughout the bill that is consistent with this particular amendment, Mr. President. May I get a ruling on that, Mr. President, so that we can proceed? I mean, it's up to the body how they want to proceed, but that is my recommendation because I noted that His Honor's amendments are all related to this particular amendment, which is removing these particular IPAs from the coverage of Create Bill and the FIRB, Mr. President.
Is there no other amendment? The way you read the proposed amendments in your copy, Senator Cayetano, there's no other amendment except
they're all related, Mr. President, although if His Honor can point out others that are not, I am happy to deal with it. But from my and my team's review, they're all related to this provision, this amendment of His Honor.
that these
IPAs.
reports or IPAs be exempted from Create? Is that how
Yes,
it is?
Mr. President.
Read?
Yes.
All right. So what is the pleasure of the sponsor?
So, Mr. President, with all due respect to His Honor, I respectfully cannot accept these amendments because the whole essence of Create is to be able to have all the IPAs accountable and to make their filings, their submissions to the FIRB so that precisely FIRB can ensure that these IPAs are being accountable. I've spread into the record that throughout the period of amendments, we have already made certain distinctions like the 1 billion mark, which keeps the 1 billion investments gives it to the IPAs to handle, but beyond that, it's still the IPAs would still have to present it to the FIRB for the approval. So for those reasons, I respectfully have to decline, Mr. President.
Perhaps I should explain further, Mr. President, if I may. Mr. President, ilan lang po yan? Mga pre-ports lang po yan. Hindi ko na nga sinama yung special economic zones because yun ang talagang nire-refer nila na hindi nila katanggap-tanggap yan. And as I've said before, a free port is really different from a mere special economic zone. So iniiwalay lang natin because that is a policy change that's very serious pagka isasama niya yung Subic Bay Freeport, Mr. President. At saka yung Clark Development Corporation. Can you imagine, in the last 20 years, Clark will change, Mr. President. Una, export processing zone sila, ginawa silang Freeport. Tapos, tinanggal. Tapos gumawa na naman tayo ng law na binalik. Tapos ngayon, ibabalik na naman natin. Ang epekto doon sa Freeport impact, may impact doon sa Freeport area ng Clark yan. Ganun rin yung Bataan. Ginawa natin yan, tapos namatay, tapos binuhay natin, tapos ngayon ibabalik na naman sa dati after umaangat na tayo. Yung TIESA, hindi nga pinairal yan, pero lumakas ang tourism kahit na paano, lalong-lalo na ngayon, kailangan natin yan. Yung Zamboanga, may problema sila talaga doon. Wala naman nakukuha halos talaga ang gobyerno. Pero nasa batas na yan eh. Mahirap po mag-file. Saka yung Cagayan de Economic Zone. Pero ang pakaiho namin, lahat yan matulungan at yung mga pre-ports na yan, lumakad bilang isang team na mag-i-invest tayo para na magpupunta sa mga ibang bansa para makapamili yung mga iimbitahin natin. So, yun po ang package yan. Now, of course, Mr. President, hindi naman lahat yan eh. Hindi naman sinasama yung mga special economic zone na doon sa Cavite. Halimbawa, kung akong tatanungin nyo, sasama ko yan. Pero hindi nga may sama din, pinagbibigyan na rin natin ng gusto ninyo. Pero ang point dito, talaga, yung FIRB, what reason should they now have control over all these people? Kasi sabihin ninyo, para lang ma-rationalize yung incentive. It can be rationalized even by GCG. Pwede sabihin yan. Or for that matter, they can be asked to submit, sabi nga ni Senate President Tito Soto kagabi sa akin, reporting lang, reportage lang. Kung reportage lang, then they can even, I'm willing to even submit and say, di may kasama recommendation na alisin yung masyadong sumobra na investments, na incentives, Mr. President. Hindi naman, I think it's really harmless. It doesn't hurt the whole bill. It just segregates so that hindi aalis yung mga naandun at madadagdagan pa yung investments, Mr. President. Dahil yung iba, may 5%, wala naman kami dyan sa Subic at saka sa Clark ng tinatawag na income tax holidays, Mr. President. Marami ang iba dyan eh. Kaya nga sana narinig yung mga mayor kanina, yung mga governors, talagang nakaalala sila talaga dyan. So, yun lang. Pagbigyan nyo na yung mga tao naman dyan na sila. Nagtatakot ako sa yung isang bayan ko, Cavite. 16 yung special economic zone doon. Ibig nyo, pag tinanggal, pagka nawala yan, you better guard them because pagka umalis yan, you will affect 159,000 employees. Gano'n rin sa Batangas, gano'n rin sa Laguna. Hindi natin sinama yon. Yun ang mga Freeport po ang sinama natin. So I hope that describes it. And sa akin, recommendatory monitoring yung FIRB, pero ang talagang dapat mag-say later on, as you can see in the next amendment, kung hindi nyo tatanggapin yan, ay dapat talaga Presidente ang magsasabi na huwag nyo nang bigyan ng incentives yan dahil hindi naman sumunod dun sa kanilang pinangako eh. Ganyan naman ang labanan dyan eh. Lahat ng mga tao na nagsasabi, nakuha ko itong investment sa ito. Katulad dyan sa China. Ang dami-dami natin nakuha investment sa China hanggang ngayon, wala pang lumalabas. Konting-konti lang. Hindi nagagawa. Bibigyan nyo ng incentives yan. Dapat patinin ng Presidente yan.
All right. So that is the part.
President.
Senator Tolentino.
Yes, I think there is an inquiry coming from the good sponsor relative to the first proposed amendment on page 12, line 21. And the good sponsor is saying that all the other amendments are related, Mr. President. So would that mean, Mr. President, that the non-acceptance of the first amendment would indicate the non-acceptance likewise of the succeeding amendments, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President. Saka isa pa, dadagdag ko lang, bakit natin lalagyan ng kasinabi ko na sa aking preliminary remarks, na pag nilagyan nyo ng threshold yan, 1 billion pesos is nothing, sir. Doon sa mga super zones like Clark at saka Subic, madalaki nakukuha investments yan po. So kung makukuha po natin yan, bakit papahabain pa? Mga may nag-aaral naman yan, at saka closer is better, palagi ang sinasabi ko nga.
All right. Again, Senator Tolentino, what is your pleasure?
Mr. President, I think with the indulgence of the sponsor, she's awaiting a ruling from the chair as to the connectivity of all the amendments. This would be a departure from our traditional rule that we tackle the amendments line by line, sentence by sentence. So in effect, will all amendments be lumped together and rejected or accepted together? That's probably the query of the good sponsor.
We've done this before. There were instances in the past that a certain issue, even here in this Congress, there are issues that are connected to each other, and we vote on the principle of whether to approve or not that particular issue. On the this bill itself, we already made a vote a few days ago, if I recall it right. I'm being reminded by the majority leader on whether I think it was a motion by Senator Recto during that time to separate both. The Senator Drilon was suggesting before that we separate the two into the two issues into two separate bills, and we voted on it in principle instead of taking it one by one. But anyway, that is the proposal of Senator Cayetano. What is the pleasure of the body?
Mr. President.
Who's that? Senator Pangilinan.
Yes, Mr. President, perhaps procedurally, the amendment, this particular amendment has been proposed. It has been, it is not to be accepted as manifested by the sponsor, and so the proponent has appealed and has manifested and explained why he is appealing. So now it is should be, I suppose, we have to vote on it, and then depending on the results of the vote, we can then tackle the next set of proposed amendments and discuss whether we will proceed with it, or whether as a matter of policy, and we've done before, it will. We can discuss it after. In other words, after the results of the first vote has been made.
That is another option that is being proposed.
I agree with the former majority leader, Senator Pangilinan. There's an objection to the proposal. The best way to move forward is to divide the House, Mr. President.
Tackle the first amendment being proposed by Senator Gordon. All right. So the Senator Cayetano.
Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Tolentino.
Yes, Mr. President. Before we proceed with the division of the House, I would like to manifest my concurrence with some of the sentiments made by Senator Gordon. Although I'm not really a fan of Senator Gordon, with due respect, I've been attending some committee hearings wherein I have not been recognized. With due respect, zero lang po yun. But on this particular aspect, I am for the great bill. In fact, the good sponsor would remember I was the first one to interpolate the Sipira version 6 months ago, more than 1 hour, I think, Mr. President. But as regards this particular amendment, I am in concurrence with the sentiments of Senator Gordon. I have in front of me, but again, I reiterate, having heard the amendments last night relative to the Cavite, my parochial matters which I raised last night, wala po problema sa akin. But relative to this amendment, the exemption, I would join Senator Gordon, having hand a copy of Senate Resolution 141. Senate Resolution 141 is dated September 16, 1991, and I will be allowed to read a portion cognizant of the immediate negative impact of an abrupt withdrawal, but confident with sound economic policies and programs, clean and efficient governance, more imaginative approaches to problems, and resolute will and determination of the entire nation, the Philippines has sufficient domestic resources and capability to draw from to be able to address its needs, surmount the temporary difficulties, and move forward towards its goals and aspirations for the well-being and contentment of the people, which is the foundation of national security. September 16, 1991, Senate Resolution 141, signed by the Senate President Rodrigo Salonga, after the Senate vote rejecting the extension of the Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation, which resulted in the closure 5 months after Pinatubo of prior to be, among others, Fort Stotzenberg, Mr. President. And I share the sentiments of the good senator from Olongapo that they filled the gap, the aperture, so to speak, Mr. President. That the people of Zambales, Olongapo, Pampanga, and all others, including the ITAS, have in having a Clark, in having a Subic. In fact, I can still vividly recall. I was one of the first. I was there when the first plane landed in Subic from abroad. I think the passenger was President FDR coming from an APEC meeting. So I support the sentiments that why do we have to eviscerate the economic gains done by Subic, Clark, among others. So yun po yung gusto kong samahan siya. But for that particular amendment only, Mr. President, but as regards the entire hubris of the CREATE bill, I already voiced my sentiment last night. I will be voting for the CREATE, but for this particular amendment, I joined Senator Gordon together with other local officials, which we met this morning, Mr. President, sharing their sentiments as well. Yun lang po, Mr. President. Pinakita ko lang po yung voto.
The minority leader is recognized, Senator Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the permission of the chamber, allow me to spread into the record my support for the amendment proposed by Senator Gordon. From the very start of these debates on the CREATE bill, I have manifested to you, Mr. President, and to the sponsor that I am really in favor of the rationalization of the fiscal incentive, because let us face it, a number of our incentives right now in the books are prone to abuse, and therefore, from that perspective, our coffers would suffer. But having said that, I had hoped that we would tackle the bill separately from the income tax portions as I have proposed. But having said that, again, you know, Mr. President, the issue of the FIRB has become very controversial. I wish it was not there because it is natural for IPAs to retain that independence and the discretion to approve or not approve a prospective investor within their jurisdiction. So it is, you know, we're trying as a policy, we're trying to decentralize the powers of the central government. The local government code is proof of the policy towards decentralization, towards granting more powers to the local governments. This bill with the FIRB goes to the other side. In other words, it tends to centralize government power. And it is, in my view, that is what is basically difficult to accept. And that is why I am speaking in favor of the proposal of our colleague, Senator Gordon. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
All right. Majority Leader. Do I take it that Senator Gordon is appealing to the body, the rejection of the...
Yes, President. The parliamentary status is the proponent is appealing to the sponsor. The sponsor
Appealing to the sponsor.
Well, appealing to the body because the sponsor had objected to the amendment, Mr. President. We'll have to put this on a vote, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Yes, Senator
Mr.
Villar.
President.
Senator Villar, go ahead.
Maybe we should have a compromise wherein we just raise the amount of money that this, the most famous of these are Clark and Subic. Maybe we just can raise the amount wherein they will seek approval from the national government. Let's make 1 billion to 5 billion for Subic and Clark. I don't know. That's how I see it, so that we can reach a compromise here. Thank you.
What does the sponsor say?
Mr. President, the body will recall that there was actually there was no threshold before. All were subject to the FIRB approval. And the initial proposal, I think, of Senator Recto, no, I'm not sure if it was Senator Recto, was 3 billion. And I explained to the body, Senator Angara, it might have been, I'm not sure, but yeah, Senator Recto proposed 3 billion and Senator Angara proposed 1 billion. And 3 billion, you know, Mr. President, most of the investments are below 1 billion. So, I mean, are around that area. So if you make it 3 billion, wala na kung pupunta sa FIRB. So we deemed it a good compromise already to put it at 1 billion, Mr. President. And that is the position of the chair. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, just very briefly.
Senator Recto, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the amendment before us is very similar to the option 1 I presented from the very beginning. My understanding is that the body decided to use option 2, and because of that, most of the amendments that I proposed were with regard to option 2 enhanced. So I just wanted to put that on the record and to make sure also that all those in operating today, all the IPAs will have the same privileges and that those privileges could be extended. Now, having said that, Mr. President, so nabawasan na natin yung possible harm that it could create and try to enhance the incentives to make it better from the original proposal. Now, having said that, Mr. President, I've advised Senator Gordon as well that going back to the same issue might be difficult. Nevertheless, since Senator Villar was trying to propose the possibility of a compromise, another compromise could be that Subic is the only one that could be carved out, Mr. President, because of the nature of Subic in itself. So that's another way. That's another compromise, Mr. President. I'm just tossing that to the body. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
I would also just like to put on record, Mr. President, many of you know that I've really gone back and forth bringing your proposals to the attention, not just of the DOF team, but the Secretary of Finance himself, DTI, and all the other related, at some point, even DOLE. So this is really a product, and I believe that the Majority Floor Leader, the Senate President, can attest to that, because you've seen, no, it's not about my effort, but it's about the end product, no, that it's a result already of this going back and forth. I really did not want to have to reject any proposal. I really wanted to be able to come back to each colleague and say, how about this? No, either accepting it or saying, how about this? And I mentioned that simply because here we are trying to find another common ground, but I need to appeal to all of you that we already found that common ground. And this is also what is acceptable to DOF and the other are basically our finance team. And if we want to propose something else again, Mr. President, and if the body wants to carry it, I have to be honest with you. DOF has already said that ito na po yung limit, no? So the chances of it being vetoed is there. If that's how you want this work to go, again, I have always said, I am your servant here. Kung ano yung desire ng body, yan ang mangyayari. But I think it's my obligation to let you know kung hanggang saan naman si DOF. And I concur with everything that Senate President Pro Temp had mentioned, that, you know, there were so many amendments that we accepted precisely to address the various concerns. It's not just about this, no? It's about all the other provisions that we strengthened to give the investors confidence in coming back to our country. But at the same time, hindi natin pinabayaan yung mga MSMEs. We lowered their corporate. So it's really a balancing act. So if we will go back and try to keep changing these things, again, I am your servant. We will go back and forth. But either we will not pass this or we will pass something that might be vetoed. And it is just my job to tell all of you. I will follow what the body desires.
Minority Leader, Senator Rilon.
Mr. President, we'll keep on going back and forth at the rate it is going. So, if I may suggest, with all due respect to our colleagues, Senator Gordon had an amendment. Senator Villar had an amendment to the amendment. And
No,
so,
propose pa lang yung kay
It's not
Senator Villar.
an amendment. That is just an idea.
okay, so if it's an idea, I mistook it as a formal amendment. If it's an idea, because if it's an amendment, then Senator Gordon can be referred to Senator Gordon. But if not, then I think the good sponsor has, for her reasons, declined to accept the amendment. But then we should already divide the House if that is what is called for. And by the way, Mr. President, I don't think that the standard should be whether or not the proposal is acceptable to DOF. What the standard should be, is it acceptable to the chamber? Because we are a separate body from the Department of Finance, and therefore we should vote on the basis of our conscience and what we believe is best for the country, not what the Secretary of Finance or the Department of Finance. Thank you, Mr. President. And therefore,
President, yes.
Majority Leader.
My final weigh-in on this matter. I spoke to the secretary on the issue on the veto. I spoke to the secretary this morning because I was trying to find a win-win solution for our dear colleague Senator Gordon and for all the governors in this particular area. Maybe we could find a common ground. And he was very firm. I just want to put this on record. He was very firm that this is a deal breaker, that they will veto it. I understand the point of Senator Dulon, but we all know it's within the rights of the president to veto a measure. My worry is what will happen na po sa lahat ng MSMEs and even big businesses who are trying to get a tax break. Yun na po. I just want to put that on record. We may approve this and then it will be vetoed. Sayang din po yung nagawa natin. I tried. I called up the secretary. I said, can we just accept this, please, Mr. Secretary? So I just want to put that on record, Mr. President. So let's put it on a vote. I move that we vote.
Just a query on something that you mentioned last night. You were saying something that the MSMEs were 95%?
99.9 out of 1 million registered businesses, Mr. President. 995,000 businesses are MSMEs. And they will get 20% corporate income tax. Those who are gaining or paying or earning 5 million and below will only pay 20% corporate income tax. Malaking bagay po yan, Mr. President. I'm going to speak tomorrow sa Go Negosyo in front of all the MSMEs. And I'm excited to tell them the news that we passed a measure that would give them this tax break that they sorely need in this time of pandemic. Yun lang akin po, Mr. President. No? I just want to make sure that ang importante dyan, yung tax, natin, yung pagbaba ng corporate income tax. For everyone, Mr. President. For everyone.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to vote.
Mr. President.
Senator Gordon.
Mr. President, first I've already answered the 1 million establishment. And I just want to address that right away because that came in most recently again. Only 180,000 firms are stock corporations. Hindi naman ho lahat yan corporation. At hindi parang exaggerated yung sinasabi ng konti. Konti lang, ano? But the point is, Mr. President, change is something that is endemic to the legislature or for the executive, Mr. President. The executive asks us to act on this. We can act on it, but we have to put our conscience on the block. We have to put our talent and our skill and our vision on the block. And we don't have to, I find it abominable. It's always good natatakutin tayo na mabibito. Mr. President, nabito yung bill ko eh. Nabito rin yung rich bill eh. Nabito rin yung Coco Levy, Mr. President. I-refile natin. But, Mr. President, I'm not gonna kowtow to somebody. Bibito namin yan. Bakit? Sila ba ang anak ng Diyos? Kailan ba tayo titindig dito na hindi naman pwedeng pagtulak-tulakan lang ang Senado? Bata pa ako, nagpupunta lang ako sa Senado. Hindi ganyan ang pagkaginisan ko sa Senado ng panahon nila Senator Jokno, sila Senator Tolentino, and I'm sure sila Senator Soto. Ganun ang araw. Talagang hindi mo pwedeng takot-takutin yan. Lumalaban ng araw ang Senado. Hindi naman kailangan lumaban. Kung mapapakiusapan at hindi nagkasundo, doon talaga magkakaalaman, doon talaga ang tunay na posisyon. Now, Mr. President, I thank Senator Villar. Sabi niya, proposal yan, 5 billion pesos. I might accept that, Mr. President, if I may be so bold, if only to save the bill. But this is not a bill for me, Mr. President, kasi kanina sinabi, compromise for Senator Gordon. Mr. President, this is a bill for our country. And I just want to say, hindi lang naman sinabi na sa akin ni Senator Ralph kagabi, yun na lang SBMA. Sabi ko, hindi po ako ganun eh. May mga Subic-Way Freeport, may Clark Freeport, mayroong mga ibang Freeports. I will run just to save the hide of SBMA at the expense of others who have tried very hard to be a Freeport themselves. Hindi ko po kayang gawin yan. Yung mga nakakakilala sa akin dyan, hindi ko tinatakbo ng mga kasama ko. Kung minsan pag tinitira yung mga kasama natin, hindi na ako kailangan sabihan. Dumikipensa ako. So Mr. President, huwag naman ganun ang mga arguments. Ang proposal ko na andyan, I'm asking na nakikiusap ako, kung ma-reconsider, let's do it. Now, I'm willing to accept kung papayagan nyo ko, if I may be so bold, yung sinabi ni Senator Villar, 5 billion ang kuhan. Pero again, I agree with Senator Dillon also na talagang bakit ba pinagtatanggol natin maigi itong FIRB? Saan ba galing yan? Sino ba ang pinagtatanggol natin dyan? Hindi naman nakikialam ng araw yan dyan. Maganda naman ang takbo. Bakit ba natin pinagpapakialaman yung FIRB? Natatakot tayo na masasaktan sila. Kaya kung ako tatanungin nyo, I really don't care about FIRB. They are a creation of the Senate and the lower house. And we can abolish them. Or we can adjust their powers, Mr. President. But I'm not sure as well if we're going to be kowtowing to them.
Anyway, you have said your piece. The sponsor has rejected. The chairman of the Committee on Ways and Means, sponsor of the bill, has rejected the proposed amendment. The Senator Gordon has raised an appeal, and that automatically means an appeal to the body. And therefore, because of the precarious circumstances that some of us are virtually present, we will not be able to avail of the ayes and nays, and a hand raising or standing vote. The chair declares a nominal voting on the amendment. On the proposed amendment. All those in favor of the Gordon amendment will say yes, and those who are not in favor will say no. All right? Are we ready, Majority Leader?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right. The Secretary will call for roll call vote.
Roll call vote. The Honorable Senator Angara. Binay.
No.
No. Cayetano.
No.
De Lima. De La Rosa. Drilon.
Yes.
Gatchalian. Go.
No.
Gordon.
Yes.
Ontiveros.
Ay.
Lacson.
No.
Yes. Lapid. Marcos. Marcos.
Oh, no.
What was the vote of Senator Lapid?
None. He was not online.
He's not online.
Pacquiao. Pangilinan.
Yes.
Pimentel III.
No.
O.
No.
Recto.
No.
Revilla Jr.
Revilla.
You're muted, Senator Revilla.
No.
Tolentino.
Okay na ako.
Yes, yes, I join Senator Gordon.
Villanueva. Villar.
No.
Zubiri.
With a heavy heart, Mr. President, I vote no.
The Senate President. Soto III.
I vote in favor of the chairperson. I vote no.
No vote.
Thirteen, 14 ako.
Nag-ano siya? Yes siya.
14-5.
There are 5 affirmative votes, 16 negative votes. The amendment is lost.
Mr. President,
Yes, Senator Gordon.
I have another amendment. Mr.
Yes,
President,
proceed.
in the event, as has happened, that the proposed amendment should not be accepted, we recommend the removal of the phrase approve or disapprove, as appears in page 43, line 32, so that it will read section 13.
Line 40. I'm sorry, page 43.
Page 43, line 32, so that it will read section 13B, 15B, a mandatory clause. The following laws, decrees, executive orders, rules, and regulations are hereby amended or modified accordingly. A, to transfer to the Fiscal Incentives Review Board the power of the Investment Promotion Agency Board to review and remove, approve, or disapprove fiscal incentives. Summon is fiscal incentives. So I will read it to mandate to recommend the modification of the same if necessary to the President, Mr. President. So move, Mr. President.
Mr.
So
President,
your motion is to remove the words approve or disapprove.
Yes, Mr. President.
And what is, you mentioned the president.
Yes, I recommend the modification of the same if necessary to the President in connection with the fiscal incentives. To review fiscal incentives, recommend the modification of the same if necessary to the President.
What does the sponsor say?
Mr. President, with all due respect, we will have to, we cannot accept this amendment because it also removes from the FIRB the power to approve or disapprove fiscal incentives. And that is also part of the powers that are inherent to the FIRB and what we envision for it. So with all due respect, I cannot accept this amendment.
The sponsor has rejected the amendment, Your Honor.
Mr. President, we must move forward. So do you propose a nominal vote on this issue? Mr. President?
I'd like to make a correction on the vote earlier. It's 14, 14 negative votes, 5 affirmative vote. 5 affirmative. 14 and 5. All right.
So, Mr. President, do we do a nominal vote once again, Mr. President, or ace and ace sufficient? But we can't, the problem is we're not half, 2/3 of the Senate is online. So, Mr. President, I presume we just have to go nominal voting once again.
Yeah, well, is Senator Gordon appealing the rejection?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, then we call another vote on this issue. the proposed amendment of Senator Gordon. All those in favor will say yes, and those who are against will say no. The Secretary will proceed with our roll call vote.
Roll call vote. The Honorable Senators Angara, Binay. Huh?
Senator Binay,
Yes,
Ano, when
I
the-
vote for the amendment.
Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon,
Yes.
Gatchalian, Go,
Anong boto na?
mute.
you're muted. Is that thumbs up or thumbs down? Senator Go.
No, no.
No down, no.
Gordon,
Yes.
Ontiveros,
Aye.
Lacson,
No.
Lapid,
No.
Marcos,
Yes.
Oh,
Lapid,
Lapid.
no, Marcos,
Yes.
yes, Pacquiao, Pangilinan,
Yes, yes.
Pimentel III,
No.
Poe,
Yes.
Recto,
No siya.
it's a no,
No siya.
Revilla Jr.,
No.
Tolentino,
Yes.
Villanueva, Villar,
Abstain.
abstain, Zubiri,
No.
the Senate President Soto III.
I vote for the stand of the chairperson. I vote no.
That's a no vote.
With 7 affirmative votes, 12 negative votes, and 1 abstention, the proposed amendment is lost.
Mr. President,
Yes, Senator Gordon.
I beg your indulgence. I could not hear the votes of the others, Mr. President. I don't know whether we're counting them as yes, and I'd like to hear their votes, Mr. President. Really hard enough that we are in virtual coverage. I did not hear the votes of Joel Villanueva. I did not hear the votes of the others, and even in the previous.
They did not vote. Those who you did not hear were not counted. Senator Villanueva's vote is not counted. Senator De La Rosa's vote is not counted. De Lima, who else? Pacquiao. Those 4 did not vote.
So what is the total vote now, Mr. President?
The total is 12-7-1.
So
12 negative votes, 7 affirmative votes, and 1 abstention.
Mr. President, Senator Tolentino voted yes.
Yes.
Senator Binay voted yes. Senator Drilon voted
No.
yes.
No. Senator Binay Marcos voted yes.
Senator Binay voted yes.
Senate President, Mr. President, I voted yes.
You voted yes. So it's 11-8.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Senator Cayetano, if there is no other amendment.
Mr. President, we just have some housekeeping. May I proceed?
Yes, proceed.
Mr. President, on page 10, delete the entire section 10 on line 3A to 3M and renumber the succeeding sections accordingly. I so move.
The entire?
The entire section 10 on lines 3A to 3M. This is just for consistency. This provision was already included in another provision, Mr. President.
10. I was looking at 10A. Okay. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 10A, line 23, delete 33% and replace it with 20%.
20. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On the same page, line 25, delete the word provided, comma, and also delete lines 26 to 41.
26 to 41. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Next, Mr. President, on page 31, after line 8G, insert the following. Number 10, services and activities that can promote regional and global operations in the country.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
And on the same page, delete lines 15 to 17 and the previous amendment, which read as services and activities that can promote regional and global operations in the country. Submit. We just
Remove.
moved it.
Delete.
Delete.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
And with no other amendments, Mr. President, we'll go to the title.
Please, proceed.
A minute suspension, sorry, Mr. President.
Senate session suspended. Resume.
Mr. President, my last amendment is the long title of the bill to read as follows. An act reforming the corporate income tax and incentive system, amending for the purpose sections 20, 22, 25, 27, 28, 29, 34, 40, 109, 116, and 290 of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended, and creating therein new title 13 and for other purposes. I submit.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Adopted. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, there are no more amendments proposed by the gentle lady, a sponsor. I move that we approve. We close the period of amendments and approve on second reading.
Any objection? Hearing none, the period of amendments is closed. Majority Leader's motion includes the passage on second reading. Any objection? Chair hears none. Senate Bill 1357 is hereby approved on second reading. This is a
Certified measure. Mr.
certified measure.
We would
Majority
request the Secretary to read the
Secretary will read the title of the certification from the President.
March 9, 2020, Senator Vicente Soto III, Senate President, Philippine Senate. Mr. Senate President, pursuant to the provisions of Article 6, Section 26, Subparagraph 2 of the 1987 Constitution, I hereby certify to the necessity of the immediate enactment of Senate Bill number 1357 entitled An Act Reforming the Corporate Income Tax and Incentive System, amending for the purpose sections 4, 20, 27, 28, 34, and 290 of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended, and creating therein new section Title 13 and for other purposes, to further institute tax reforms by rationalizing the corporate income tax and incentive system in order to promote foreign direct investment inflows and the expansion of business ventures conducive to economic growth and job generation. Best regards, very truly yours, signed President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
So, Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we vote on third reading, Senate Bill number 1357. Mr. President.
Secretary will read the title of the measure and conduct a roll call vote.
Title na ba tayo?
Okay, ito nga. I'm asking you to read the title.
What's your new amendment title daw? Pia.
Senate Bill 135, Section 35.
Yeah, 1 second, boss. 1 second. Kinukuha.
All right, the secretary is asking for the
I-message lang.
the secretary is asking for the
Message sa'yo.
the secretary is asking for the copy of the amended title. That is what she needs to read now.
About 2040. Viber na, Viber. Yes, Mr. President, it will be sent electronically.
All right, the secretary will proceed to read the title and conduct a roll call vote.
An act reforming the corporate income tax and incentive system, amending for the purpose sections 20, 22, 25, 27, 28, 29, 34, 40, 109, 116, and 290 of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended, and creating therein new Title 13 and for other purposes. Roll call vote. The Honorable Senators Angara, Binay,
Yes.
Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon,
Buksan mo nga to.
Calian, Go,
Yes.
Gordon,
No.
Ontiveros,
Aye.
Lacson,
Yes.
Lapid,
Yes.
Marcos,
Yes.
Pacquiao, Pangilinan,
Yes.
Pimentel III,
Yes.
Poe,
Yes.
Recto,
Yes.
Revilla Jr.,
Yes.
Tolentino,
Yes.
Villanueva, Villar,
Yes.
Zubiri,
Yes.
Senate President Soto III.
Yes. With 20 affirmative votes, 1 negative vote, no abstention, Senate Bill 1357 is approved on third reading. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much, sir, dear colleagues. Just a bit of housekeeping, Mr. President. Senator De Lima has comments on the 2021 budget she wishes to manifest. So we'd like to submit this to the Secretariat to be inserted into the records of the Senate.
All right, we will insert into the records.
Any other housekeeping? Oh, Mr. President, there is a request from Senator Cynthia Villar, and I checked with our minority floor leader, together with the proponents of the measure. Sanabin. She would like to sponsor, if possible, for second reading, a happy bill. That is her bill that we took up yesterday. Mr. President, it's just a two-page measure helping our farmers, our small rice farmers, Mr. President. With the permission of the body, can we take this up, Mr. President, for her to sponsor, and hopefully we approve on second reading as well?
It is going to be sponsored only today?
No, this was sponsored, Mr. President.
Yesterday.
I think Wednesday.
Na-sponsoran na to.
Sponsor na po ito.
Okay.
Thank you. So with the permission of the body, I move that we consider Senate Bill number 1927. I so move, Mr. President.
1927. Any objection? Chair hears none. Consideration is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor to sponsor the measure. Senator Cynthia Villar, Mr.
So she sponsored it already
I mean,
yesterday.
to defend the measure. There being no member who wishes to interpolate, I move to close the period of interpolation, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Period of interpolation is closed.
Mr. President, there being no amendments proposed by the good sponsor as well as individual members, I move to close the period of amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none. Period of amendments closed.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill number 1927. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Senate Bill 1927 is approved on second reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, just a few housekeeping measures.
Let me start with the designation of the bicameral conference committee conferees on the part of the Senate for the
Mr.
House
President, may we recognize Senator Drilon is raising his hands.
Yes,
Before we
Mr. President.
Senator Drilon is recognized.
Yes, can we first move to suspend consideration of the bill being sponsored by Senator?
Yes, Mr. President, I apologize. We're all very hungry. It's 1:44 and none of us, I've not even had breakfast. So, Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 1927. Thank you to the minority floor leader to pointing that out.
Consideration of the measure is in order. It's suspended, I'm sorry, suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. We may proceed,
All right.
Mr. President. with
May I
designation.
now designate the bicameral conferees for House Bill 7727. Senator saan yan? Wala rito. Senator Sani Angara is the chairman. And members are the vice chairs, led by Senior Vice Chair Pia Cayetano, Villar, Lacson, Villanueva, Gatchalian, Gordon, Go, Marcos, Ontiveros, Po, and Pangilinan. And alternates are Pacquiao, De La Rosa, Nancy, Binay, and Revilla. So designated.
Mr. President, may I move also for the designation of the BICAM members of FIST?
For Senate Bill 1849 and House Bill 6816, Senator Grace Poe is designated chairman and members are Senator Recto Drilon. So designated. All right, Majority Leader. The journal.
Mr. President, yes. We have one last housekeeping measure that we overlooked, believe it or not, Mr. President, since 2019. I was shocked about this little oversight, Mr. President, but I had discussed this with Senator Franklin Drilon, our Minority Floor Leader. Apparently, usually the approval of the Journal of the Budget Deliberations is always delayed, and it awaits the final copy of the budget amendments. And for this budget deliberations last year, the draft journal was finished sometime of March, Mr. President, this year. But we were on recess at that time, and we resumed session. The approval of the journal was overlooked. So, Mr. President, with the permission of the body, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 34th session, November 11, 12, 13, 14, 18, 19, and 20, 2019, and consider them as approved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finally, Mr. President, is the favorite motion to adjourn. Mr. President. Oh, sorry. May we also ask, you want to put the mic? The good sponsor of CREATE would like to also propose her BICAM members, Mr. President. May I ask for a 1-minute suspension before we adjourn?
Session suspended. Majority Leader.
No.
Hindi na kailangan mag-designate.
Mr. President, we were, may we recognize the sponsor, because the sponsor had a call from the Department of Finance. Okay.
It's not necessary.
That's not necessary, Mr. President. At this point in time, we will not designate the BICAM members first.
All right.
Yeah. So at this point in time, we'll not designate BICAM members.
I would
With that-
like to entertain the most important motion.
Yes, Mr. President. Boss, yung adjournment natin is the next Monday. First of March po.
Mr. President,
Yes, Senator Drilon.
yes, just a parliamentary inquiry. We were rushing to approve the CREATE bill, and now that there is a need to designate the members of the BICAM on the part of the Senate,
May sabihin mo, ikaw.
Sabihin ko.
we would just like to
yes.
know why we deferred.
Well, I was informed that
No, Mr. President, may I just
the House
answer?
of Representatives sent word that there is no need for a BICAM.
Mr. President, I think they're pushing to just adopt the Senate version.
Yeah, but
I think that would be the best for the Senate.
okay, on that, well, we can put that of record that they are our information is that they will accept it.
Yes.
The Senate version, which would justify a deferment. Should they change their minds, then we so
can
designate.
designate.
Yes.
All
We
right,
can
then
designate.
let's designate. No, let's simplify the matter. I hereby designate Senator Pia Cayetano as chair of the Bicameral Conference Committee, if ever there is one, and members are Senators Recto and Drilon. So designated.
There you go. That's very good. That's very good, Mr.
Yes, that is Dr. Recto and Dr. Drilon for their surgical amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right.
Mr. President, with that, I move that we adjourn, and this is just information to all. We are adjourning. We don't have work next week on Monday, just for the record. November 30 is a holiday,
All right.
because they might be wondering why we'll be adjourning next week. November 30 is a holiday, which is a Monday. And December 2, Mr. President, for the information of the body, is also Pasay City Day. It's a holiday. So there's only work for the Secretariat, I believe, on December 1. But us, Mr. President, for all the members of the BICAM, for FIST, for the budget, to prepare their bicameral conference committees, we are going to adjourn till December 7. That is the next Monday, Mr. President, to allow our colleagues, so many of them who are members of the BICAM, to do the
Yes.
work in the bicameral conference.
16 members of the BICAM.
Mr. President.
There will be no quorum here.
Yes, Mr. President. And
On
therefore,
December 1.
I move that we adjourn session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Monday, December 7. I so move, 2020, December 7.
Any objection? Chair hears none. The session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Monday, December 7, 2020.
Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you.